Hey, okay, I fixed that. Ping in the Discord. Sec. I actually, well, I had it. I had a chat widget I was using, but it's not good enough because people were donating last stream, and it doesn't show me when people donate, so it's a really bad widget. Which means I can see people when they talk to me, but I'm not gonna be able to thank them when they send me stuff, and that was bad. That happened last time. I don't want it to happen again. So, just to recap what was happening the last time, not counting the panel, before I got sick and was fucking worthless for like a week, was going over the part 1 of 3 of the Destiny Mr. Girl inevitably talking about Fuentes conversation. Um, probably not probably not going to be as energized as the Papa Gut one had me, because that guy is uh, so impressively stupid and awful. Uh, but it should still be good. I'll rewind it a little bit. It's been like a week, so I'll go back like a couple of minutes here. Uh, I don't necessarily remember like everything that I saw. And if you don't know why I haven't streamed, I had the flu, like the actual flu. My wife got influenza A, then everybody got it in my house. It was miserable. Papa Gut is impressively pretty. Oh, you know who Papa Gut is? I found out about him the day that I watched. I didn't know it was gonna be like me meta reacting. But he reacted to like one of the first conversations Destiny and Mr. Girl had. Oh no, it was the post all review one, and he just made me so mad. He was so bad faith with everything. Like he had everything that was said and done was like under the pre-assumption that Mr. Girl was like literally the worst person ever. And he would but then also he would say things, and then if Destiny disagreed, he would try to like change what he said so that he like retroactively had already agreed with Destiny. Like he pretended like he already did. It was really dumb. And my favorite bit of that whole thing was um, he said that him and Destiny could be friends, but Papa Gut just couldn't deal with certain aspects of Destiny. Like that was the thing that's holding up their friendship. Um, is though Destiny wanted to be friends with him, but Papa Gut was just like, no, we can't be friends. You require too much. I don't know. Like he said, like people need to be talking like too much or something like that. It was really dumb. But yeah, this is where we left off. So this is where I'm gonna start. I think before I start, I want to mention Sunday. Food Shop's having a panel on polyamory, and I'm legally required to be on any panel about polyamory, so I'll be there. Um, yeah, that's it. It was a good panel last night before last. I was actually kind of mean. Okay, good. Audio works. Excellent.
Did anything make sense? I don't know.
It was like the most non-committal.
I'm sorry. Is that super loud for you guys too? I have to turn it down at least a little bit for myself. Jesus.
Like series of statements I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't know.
Okay.
That's even the point of
I don't remember her
So,
coming on at all.
Ico, hello.
Harlan, Dave Chappelle.
Believe kind of,
Yeah.
because this happened with the kind of skeptic anti-SJW community, right? It was seeming
Yeah, I'll
Like
start
what
back
your
where she
goal is
came
at the
in.
end of the day with what you're doing, because it's very possible to very easily wind up as the like unintentional nuclear weapon of an incredible.
What happens if I don't show up? If I don't show up to a polyamory panel, then I am at risk of being called to the council of polyamorous people, and they could take away my rights and force me to be monogamous. I didn't make the rules; I just have to follow them.
Incredibly hateful or evil community without being aware that that's happening, you know.
That better?
That's my
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
general thoughts on it. Yeah.
Because this happened with the kind of skeptic anti-SJW community, right? It was seemingly kind of memes and jokes at first with some of the things they were saying, and then some of them, like, unironically became like far-right weirdos.
I know it.
And you know, it's like, hey guys, we're joking, right? And it's like, no, these guys aren't joking. There was that Edgy Sphinx person, I think, that specifically presented themselves as a skeptic.
Oh, I can turn myself up a bit. See, right there when Chud just said like, "Hey, we're joking," right? That's the kind of behavior from Chud that I liked. He could be edgy and joke and all that, but like at the end of the day, it was pretty easy to tell that like there's a lot of lines that he wouldn't cross that now he just like they're just not lines anymore.
And Kraut was friends with them, and then they turned it out to be a massive Nazi or some shit like that. So, you know. Sorry, Mr. Go on.
I kind of object to two things. One, Stephen, I think comparing somebody like
Hopefully that should be a lot better now.
Fuentes or Trump,
Oh,
like
actually.
these are the people that come to my
Now
mind
should
when
be.
we're talking about right-wing jokes that are also the person saying what they actually believe, kind of. Comparing that to Louis C.K., like, he's a comedian, right?
Oh,
We
yeah, hold
don't
on. Wait, to
have-
be clear, just so I'm not comparing them to Louis C.K.
just talking about just the jokes.
I'd be comparing somebody like me to that person, right? Like, I'm hoping that I'm the comedian that's saying a thing that's kind of offensive, but I
But you're
don't
not a
actually
comedian.
believe.
You're a
You can
But
cope, you
you're-
can cope like that if
every
you want,
time-
but comedy is part of what we do, whether you
No,
like it or
I'm not
right?
coping.
Mr. Girl has a really fair point here. What Destiny says holds a lot more weight, and it is more reasonable to speculate when somebody like Destiny says something that may or may not be a joke. Just the fact that it's reasonable to speculate whether or not you're joking is wholly different than Louis C.K. If Louis C.K. says anything on stage, it should be interpreted as a joke because he is strictly a comedian. Destiny says a lot of things that have no intention of being funny because he's not a comedian. So this is I don't know if Destiny's like sort of playing up like the fantasy of what he wants his job to be, but he's funny, but he's not a comedian. He's a political debate streamer first, who also tells jokes and is joking.
Motherfucker, I'm
Okay.
saying that your existence online is not. You're not a comedian. People don't you say who's Destiny. They don't say he's a comedian.
Sure, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Right.
Right. People that do
Not
like
wrong.
YouTube and Twitch
Actually, I'm
stuff for
right.
entertainment, right? That involve elements of comedy.
Yes.
Those aspects of comedy can
yes.
involve satire and irony. Satire and irony is not
Okay,
reserved
but
for people that write comedian on their text forms.
I'm not
right?
saying that. I'm not saying that is. I'm saying you're literal. When people ask, if somebody asks me who you are, who's your buddy Steven? I don't say he's a comedian.
Okay, maybe I'll phrase this in a way because I don't think there's no way you can possibly disagree with me here. So let me find
Just call
different
me
words.
stupid. Just
no,
let
it's
it
not
flow.
stupid. We're playing like semantics games. When you do comedy, how about that? So not comedians, but people that do comedy. Is that okay?
Okay, it's okay, but
Okay.
it's different when Louis C.K. does comedy because he's doing it for the purpose of making people laugh. And when Trump does comedy, or when you do comedy, you're doing it for the purpose of illustrating a political message. Now, comedians can do that. I'm not saying they're totally separate from each other, but your goal as like an entity is political commentary.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm gonna go.
Yeah, they're actually like the exact opposite in that regard. Comedians almost exclusively are comedy first and then have like political or like social messaging. At least the good ones have political and social messaging integrated in, but comedy comes first. Streamers that do politics and debate come first, with comedy as a secondary.
But I just
Although
totally
both of them are
disagree. Like comedians have been a
entertainers.
vehicle for social critique for as long as they've existed. Richard Pryor, George
Absolutely.
Carlin, Dave Chappelle, like none of these things are just jokes. All of them are hitting at stuff that might have a deep underlying meaning, and the comedy can still be used in the exact same ways that a serious, like you can take an offensive Trump joke and breed hate the same way that you could take an offensive Chris Rock joke or Dave Chappelle joke or George Carlin joke and breed hate. Like all of these things can serve the same function in society of making people
Sorry, my table got moved, so it popped up.
think or act or behave a certain way.
I don't understand how Destiny doesn't get this. I feel like this is exactly what Mr. Girl's trying to say to him, and Destiny's like, no. I am exactly the same as George Carlin and Louis C.K. and Richard Pryor. Like, no, you're not. There's a reason why you're mic'd up at your house talking about stuff, and not on a stage, just telling jokes.
All have the same problems, whether you're an
You notice there's no punchline in what he's saying right now.
official capital C comedian or a Twitch streamer or YouTuber that does comedy, I think.
I guess, but I would say Dave Chappelle recently has started to not do comedy. He's making jokes, but he's more giving like a speech about his political beliefs. I would say he's becoming a political commentator. But the other people you
Accurate.
mentioned, while their jokes are political, when you're a fan of them,
Destiny is intentionally misunderstanding Mr. Girl's point. He might be. The only thing that makes me think that he's not or didn't, I feel like he might have started off not intentionally misunderstanding it, but then didn't want to let it go because the way he got like hyper and aggravated was like, there's no way you could disagree with me here. But then I think he got it and then just didn't want to let it go because it doesn't make
you're
any
not
sense
like,
to not
I really
understand this.
agree with them. I think he has a lot of
The level of autism required to not get that would be very impressive
really
to
good
me.
takes. That's not that
Yeah,
I guess
support
yeah.
they're amassing.
I was gonna say, do you think, Destiny, that like, you know, your fan base and audience engages with you in the same way that they engage with, say, Louis C.K., for example?
Yeah, they could, absolutely, right? People joke about things, and then sometimes people will take those jokes and they'll run really far with them. They'll say, like, yeah, the way that Cat Williams jokes about relationships is fucking true. It's
Like, yeah, it has to be intentional here, but like, I don't know, is he just like practicing like being contrarian here? I
true.
can't
People will say,
imagine
like,
the
oh, like
purpose.
Dave Chappelle now, you know, now Dave Chappelle is making serious political commentary. He wasn't like that before. No, he absolutely was. There were parts across multiple skits. There's the one where he talks about, like, how old is 50?
Dave Chappelle's stand-up comedy has shifted dramatically. He did like a 30-minute special where there was like 3 jokes in the whole thing. He talked about George Floyd. It was powerful. It was moving. Very, very worth watching. I love Dave Chappelle. I followed his whole career ever since I was like a teenager. That was nothing like anything I've ever seen him do before. He basically gave a very powerful, moving political speech with a couple of jokes peppered in. Mr. Girl like nailed it. I don't know what. There's like nothing unclear
Really, and
here.
he's making jokes about Elizabeth Smart, but then he turns it around and he talks about black people and how they might be treated differently when they commit a crime at 15. And he talks about the kid that like killed his friend, you know, doing a wrestling move and how he got arrested for being, you know, black basically.
Yeah, he could just be hated.
Comedians
and not
have always
caring that like
have always intertwined like political commentary and everything with their comedy. That's like that's a tale as old as time. But regardless of that, again, whether you're a capital C comedian or not, people that engage in comedy, all of the same problems and benefits of engaging with problematic humor follow whether you're a comedian or not, right? Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was a TV show that engaged with a lot of problematic humor. Those people aren't comedians, but it was like entertainment and comedy. And then you could argue that YouTubers and Twitch streamers and everything do the same. You can engage with problematic humor in responsible ways and irresponsible ways, or even in responsible ways that are still ways of
the second part, yes, you can do those things and you can engage with them, yeah. But the fact that this conversation is even warranted means that it's how Mr. Girl's saying and not how Destiny's saying it.
cause harm. It just depends on what we're talking about.
Sorry, Aiko's here,
Oh.
so
I can vouch for this. I've made jokes, and then people who don't like me will be like, well, you said this, but like, obviously I was joking. Oh, sure, it's just a joke, bro. Like, yeah, it was obviously a fucking joke. I've never said anything like that before. I didn't like stake out and defend the position. It was a joke. If somebody says a joke, they could be problematic. If you like them, they're joking. If you don't like them, then they're not joking. It's that simple.
Aiko, hello.
But if they're a comedian and you don't like it, then that's not funny, is what people say. You don't joke about that. Everybody, even people who are mad at you, know that you're joking. They just say, fucking don't. That's how you know the difference.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to clarify because what I thought would happen happened. I don't. It's not about you as a person, Destiny. It's the.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm gonna try to be good about muting
itself.
that.
I don't know why. I mean, I guess you
feeling
kind
much
of
better,
are
but it still
lumping
got me a
in
bit.
with the rest of the people that say they're on the left, but I don't know what everyone gets up to on Twitter. But my whole point is I want to point out the individual
All-rounder, you got
instances
it.
that happen without putting moral weight on it So, and not within the framing of punishment. And I think that people see criticism as, I don't know, as like, oh, let's put them on trial. Should they be around or not? I have no problem with people's platforming. I don't want to tell people how to run their platforms. I want to support them in doing whatever is authentic to them. And I don't know. I was emotional because of personal stuff in relation to that. And it was upsetting that Nick Fuentes was able to get away a little bit with the, oh, I don't really hate people, because I didn't realize myself, but a lot of people don't actually know Nick Fuentes. They don't know his history. Like, it's a lot.
Even today, I remember I brought up Nick Fuentes a couple times. Like, nobody knows who he is. If you don't watch this shit, if you're not invested in like these spaces, you don't know who he is. Even though he had like a little moment in the sun with like Trump and Kanye and all that, nobody knows who the fuck he is.
Longer ago than it feels like, or at least I don't know.
Unless you're like invested heavily into politics.
Did anything make sense? I don't know.
It was like the most non-committal like series of statements I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't know.
Okay.
What was even the point of?
I mean, honestly, okay, this is my problem.
Listen,
my problem,
let me help
hold
you,
on.
okay?
Okay.
I can help you really drill down into detail here, because it seemed like your concerns or criticisms when we spoke earlier was that in the course of this stream, there were some moments where you felt that Destiny didn't sufficiently push back.
So, this was, I believe, initially supposed to be, this is the first conversation of like the 3 conversations that Destiny and Mr. Girl had about Nick Fuentes. But it was, I think, initially this was supposed to be them talking about people doing the whole Giga Chad meme and people being called soy for, actually caring about things. And people being like overly ironic in using like irony, humor as cover to say like fucked up things. This was the kind of thing they were supposed to talk about. And it eventually devolved into a Nick Fuentes thing, which started another conversation on another stream. Yeah, the age of the Giga Chad. Yeah, I didn't know if that would track if I said that. And then we had the one with ABBA.
On what Nick Fuentes was saying, right?
Yes. That's
Okay.
what
there
I
was a
felt
third
like.
one.
Maybe we can focus on those moments.
I'm not sure about the order, but I plan on covering all 3. I did start to do these when I had COVID last year, but YouTube was like not posting it after I went live, so I don't know what the deal is
I mean, it is
with that, but I'm
what it
doing them now.
is. I'm just observing it, and honestly, I just want things.
Oh, all right. Last pause for a bit. Josh, you haven't been here for a lot of these, I think, or any of this like sort of arc I'm doing. I don't think. Basically, this is me reviewing this stuff to help me with the video, and sort of just like me when I'm talking through it, I'm like sort of like giving myself notes too.
To not.
And it's a lot different seeing it now than
sorry.
then. Sort of like a retrospective.
I guess it just. The only reason why I'm here is because I get really fucking annoyed being essentialized.
Where no one was equipped to talk about that particular meta-modern post-ironic topic at the time because everyone was getting too heated. Yeah, and or being too sensitive. Yeah. Chud was definitely too sensitive about it to actually talk about it, and it was like his thing, which is beautiful.
By people that take clips and go and make it personal, when I really specifically don't want to talk about people's hearts and minds or their motivations. And everything gets grouped into people who hate Destiny or love Destiny or whatever. I don't give a fuck about any of this shit. Like,
What about me, Aiko?
I have no problem with people who are like chill with you either.
But you've done multiple streams complaining about me, right? Saying bad things.
Oh
about
yeah,
me.
because of
Okay.
okay. Would you like me to just say what? One of the things was when you told Stardust that
Sorry.
the Tinder date story when you had the first interview with her. I felt like you did a bit of verbal sleight of hand that gave people the impression that you gave nuance when you didn't. There was no nuance involved in the words that you said.
Okay. Do you see my problem with you having basically the same reaction to me telling a Tinder date story in which I may or may not have done something rapey?
Well, by your description, it was.
As you have.
And you said that
You're
as
gonna
well.
do it right now. You're gonna
Okay,
spend
sorry.
half of
I'm
this.
sorry.
But
No,
you get what I'm saying?
done.
Like,
I'll mute myself.
do I deserve the same emotional response as what you were saying is a literal Nazi is not getting the right pushback from a gigantic political commentator?
No, I'm on your side with this, I think.
I know,
right?
but do you see why it feels like you've cried wolf a little bit, and now
It's not
like
personal. I stand by everything that I said about you.
that's fine. You can stand by it. I'm just saying, do you see how it undermines your ability later to say like, hey, I think this is inappropriate? If you've been saying that about every single thing in the same way with the same amount of emotion,
No,
you don't think
I
you've
mean,
undermined your
I don't
ability to call out
expect you.
that?
I think at some point during this, I am gonna have to go off course and go over the Stardust Mr. Girl one, because that is probably the one conversation I've seen of his where like the least amount of people agree with me about, and it drives me fucking insane. Even the people who seem to like really understand and like agree with me and like are on my side of a lot of it Mr. Girl things, that's the one where a lot of people like sort of like they just don't. I don't have a way to, I don't have a nice way to put it. And I think I just need to like really flesh it out there, and then if people want to argue with me, then they can. But that one makes me crazy.
That behavior now?
Be
'Cause it seems the
familiar.
most
I don't
obvious out
expect
of all of them to me.
both of you to be familiar with the way that I operate, but I try to be clear on my own stream. This situation right here, it's not my skill set. This is not how I'm not good at engaging in this way. But
Okay.
I try to withhold my I don't know. I try to engage proportionally, and though I am a very emotional person, I try to separate that from what I'm pointing out.
Has she made any strong statements yet? I have no
Does that
fucking
make
idea.
sense
Like, what the fuck she's
all?
even said yet?
It does,
Oh, God.
but I think that in the eyes of the audience,
I think she said she's on Mr. Girl's side. That's it.
it gets lumped together, and your emotionality, while you are having an individual emotional experience that I'm having an emotional reaction to your emotions too, but I can see my chat is just like lumping you in with every other liberal who's gonna complain about anything.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to come on and just say that, because I know that's what happens, and I know that's what was going to happen with Destiny, and I've I just
Just to be clear, people
I
were telling
hate
me that
this.
like you had a mod that was literally calling me nonstop like a Nazi in your chat. Like, did that happen?
when
Okay. If I pull out a log, will you admit it? Or I don't know.
I
I'm just
mean,
curious.
like-
I'm just curious because people mention I don't dig for logs or anything. Maybe they didn't, but
I mean, I have a no shit talking policy, especially when it comes to big streamers like you, Vosh, Asan, except for Mike from PA and Bad Bunny. Those are the only people. But because I don't want it to become an argument about
Wait, what about Mike from BA and Bad Bunny? I missed it.
to big streamers like you, Vosh, talking policy.
they didn't. But
I mean, I have a no shit talking policy, especially when it comes to big streamers like you, Vosh, Asan, except for Mike from PA and Bad Bunny. Those are the only people. But
Okay, based. If you do have a no shit talking policy, Mike from PA should be an exception.
because I don't want
'Cause he's the
it
actual
to
fucking
become an
worst.
argument about like teams or what GG you follow. So I don't have debating in my chat either. This is, I'm interested in it, but that's not my thing. So,
okay.
but yeah, I just wanted to make it clear. I know people don't have to.
The last time I brought up Mike from PA, I told my little spiel about how before he blocked me, which was way, way too long for him to do it, I would just randomly, like once every few months, talk shit at him, and he would get super mad and respond to me a whole bunch on Twitter. And I just thought it was so funny how like just anybody could whip him into a frenzy. Um, and somebody in my chat went and did it, and they're like, "Oh my god, it works." That's how like insecure and fragile Mike from PA is. He's making like I think he makes more money than Destiny does, and like he's that big and just he's so frail that anybody can say anything to him that's like not positive. He'll just freak the fuck out. What's your position on the Stardust thing that your audience disagrees with you on? I think everybody seems to disagree with me that that they were both not willing to budge on a boundary of theirs. Stardust wouldn't say that she didn't want to talk about it, and Mr. Girl, albeit he checked in with her several times, and was like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, do you want to keep doing this?" And she just kept saying, "Yeah." Apparently, her deal was she couldn't say, "I don't want to talk about this," and Mr. Girl's deal is like, if I'm talking to somebody and they don't want to talk to me about something, that's all they have to say. You can just say you don't want to talk about it. And neither one of them wanted to do that. And for some reason, everybody just insists that he should be able to tell her, well, you're wrong. You aren't okay with this. So I'm going to drop it. Essentially, that his boundary doesn't matter, only hers does. And I think that's fucking ridiculous. If they're both doing something that maybe they shouldn't have, which I think they're both totally fine to do what they did. She ended up uncomfortable afterwards. It is, it's either neither of their faults or it's both of their faults. And if it's both of their faults, it's equally both of their faults. That's it. But people act like only her boundary mattered and his did not. And I don't accept that at all.
To believe me, but this is
Also, I hated that conversation because I was supposed to interview Stardust that day. Instead, he talked to her and I interviewed her the next day, and she was just not in a good fucking mood because of it.
honest. I'm 37 years
It's
old.
like, hey, you know the guy that really pissed you off yesterday? I want to talk to you about him. That's the whole thing I'm gonna do. Nah, she should have said she didn't want to talk and ended the convo. That's on her. I agree. She could have said I don't want to talk about it and continued the conversation on something different. That's totally fine. I don't think you can't force me to talk to anyone, especially online. You can just leave the convo. It's that easy. Yeah, but people make a million reasons why her ability to do that like doesn't exist or it shouldn't have been on her or whatever. And you know what? Maybe if it was somebody else, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. But Stardust is a bad bitch. She says what she thinks all the time. She is not somebody who I think anybody should be expected to have to handhold or make a decision for her in a conversation. I think she has rightfully earned the respect of being treated like an adult at all times who can make up her own mind. She has taken on some really big dogs in the space and came out looking really good for it. There's no reason to think that she can't handle her own. And so I think that treating her like a child would be wrong to do.
This isn't
And in fact, I thought it was almost insulting how many times Mr. Girl did check in with her. Although it's like right on that line. I think it's cool that he did because obviously something was up with her. But at a certain point, you just have to respect somebody's decision. Even though she annoys you,
like
I'm right.
things are
Thank
personal
you.
to me, but it's not about you as a human, Destiny. I don't know you, obviously, and I'm not making judgments of your character. I was upset about some of the things that slipped by, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't have done that. It's just my reaction to seeing it happen. That's it. And you don't have to really, you don't have to do
Okay,
anything
hold
with
on.
that.
Okay, you talk so much and say so little, but just
Okay.
that when you say that,
Damn.
it's just my reaction. That's not true. It's not a reaction. It is a public reaction that you want everybody to see, and it's a reaction showcasing one of the most negative responses somebody can have to something, just crying. So you're clearly trying to communicate some point that something I'm doing is very wrong and shouldn't be happening. That is the point of publicly displaying tears over a thing. Do you not understand that?
No,
It can be.
Okay, I cry quite often. I'm a bit of in a medication mess right now. So I'm emotional, but I try to repeatedly take it away from you as a person, and it's hard for people to not get hyper focused on the individual and how they feel about them as a whole.
I don't know what that means, but can you?
Like, I mean, the only thing I care about is like how things impact.
I mean, I don't think always crying publicly. I mean, sometimes you're just already public and you cry. So it's weird that that's not being acknowledged
Potentially
at all.
in the future, and we don't know how anything is going to play out. And I'm not saying that what you did was specifically like going to lead to harm. It's just I see potentials, and it's I'm not I don't know how to really express this in a way where it's like, fuck. I just I can be upset about the thing, but also not put it on you. Just like I'm not putting shit on mrgirl. I don't care. Like, I have my opinions and feelings on things, but I just it's not particular to the person. I don't really know how.
Okay, my criticism isn't the same as Destiny's here. I feel like she's talking so slow.
How to express what I'm trying to say. I guess.
Really boring.
Guide us, Chud.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you feel you kind of got out what you wanted to say, then
Yeah.
we can probably end it there in terms of you coming
Yeah.
on. Okay.
Yeah, so basically, I mean what I say, and I know people make it about get distracted by me, and also kind of essentialize things to people who are pro or anti Destiny or mrgirl or whoever is the topic at the moment. And it's going to keep going, but I thought I'd just throw that out there. So thanks for listening.
No worries, Zyko. Thanks very much for coming on.
See ya.
So, yeah.
Can you summarize that real quick for me, Chud?
Well, I think the problem I've got with first of all, no, I can't.
Yeah. After they had the conversation that I was just talking about, they tried to like make up or like rebuild that bridge with Chud as a moderator. Literally the worst choice ever. Even Chud was like, "Yeah, I shouldn't have been there. That was wrong. That was bad."
Can't.
It was really
The
bad.
second thing is, why are you laughing?
Because I hate
She's
the
criticizing
fucking
what you do, not you as a person. I don't really believe her, but I think that's what she's saying.
I mean, yeah, I just think that. Yeah. Anyway, let's look. At the end of the day,
Okay.
I thought there were some critiques I could make that maybe she was going to bring into the call. It didn't happen. That's fine. Let's just move on. Okay, go back to what we were talking about.
Okay.
Okay,
fucking
Steven,
laughing,
I feel like
okay?
you're preemptive. I feel like you're preempting by calling yourself a comedian. That Steven Crowder calls himself a comedian.
Okay, wait, let's get away. Let's get
Good
away
point,
from the
let's
word.
go.
We can get. Let's get
I
away
don't
from
wanna
the.
get away from
the
it.
words.
Because the
Now it's
comedian
because
word-
Crowder.
Because
The comedian
you
word
put-
is
you put
rotting
on
your
this
mind, and we're about to
armor.
waste a whole bunch of time talking about the word comedian. What I'm saying?
We can talk about the word comedian for 5 hours if you want to, but it is a piece of armor that you have donned, and I'm saying I want to acknowledge that you're putting on that armor because I don't think you or me or Chud deserves that armor. I don't think Steven Crowder deserves the comedian armor either. I think a comedian gets a certain leeway to say more outrageous.
Thank you. I muted myself because I was coughing. So I think that it's really impressive that mrgirl didn't mention in the Destiny report that he abuses his audience every time he opens up his browser or goes to Twitter because he didn't put any of it in fucking dark mode. Like, this isn't day one on the fucking internet. Grow up. Get dark mode. You're blinding everybody, and it's
things for the
ridiculous.
sake
And it's
of a
ugly.
joke than a political commentator.
Okay, I totally
my
disagree. So I don't
God.
even know where we go from there.
Well, another thing I wanted to throw in there too is, wasn't there a court case where
I'll be honest. If I'd been dating a chick for 2 months and I found out that none of her shit was in dark mode, we'd be having a serious talk, or I'd be getting out of there. I can't be dealing with that kind of shit. Can't be dealing with that kind of negativity in my life.
Carlson?
It's too much.
I mean, he didn't say he was a comedian, but I think it was something along the lines of nothing he said is supposed to be taken
I
seriously.
believe, wasn't that Alex Jones? Didn't he try that for his defamation case?
Have you ever seen somebody send you a screenshot of Discord that's not in dark mode? You're wrong. My friend screen shared because he had an issue with his computer, and he had Discord open. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, what do you have open? I don't even know what I'm looking at. Discord not in dark mode is the most atrocious thing I've ever seen.
Alex Jones might have tried it, but I'm pretty sure this was something that happened with Tucker Carlson too.
Okay.
I think that is.
And I'm old enough to have seen Rotten.com.
Infotainment people, where
Yes,
like us, where we're telling you stuff that's happening, and we're telling you what we think about it, and we're making jokes along the way. And I think you don't get your news or political takes from a comedian, but you do get them from Destiny.
Okay, what would you have
Mr.
considered
Girl,
Jon Stewart
and
for the Daily Show?
You remember?
Infotainment, same.
What is
same
ballpark?
ballpark.
I feel like
yeah.
Ron-
Jon Stewart ain't
prepared
the
me.
same as Louis C.K.
Maybe not. What about Stephen Colbert? When the Colbert Report?
The Colbert.
I think that
the Colbert Report was like 1% news, 99% genius comedy.
I think. What about Bill Maher?
Stephen Colbert's. Again, these are all I mean, Bill Maher and Stephen Colbert are getting a little closer to comedian, but
You wouldn't consider-
their jokes per minute are way higher than you or me or Chud. Like you'll do an 8-hour stream, and like what percentage of your 8-hour stream is devoted to jokes? Like very little.
Okay.
The other
Like
problem
this
we got is there's
conversation
some
not
people
funny.
that
We're not making jokes right now. We're just fucking arguing. You don't
I'm ready to
see.
fire off. I'm holding back, okay? But listen,
Chud.
here's the problem we've got as well. Some people will be comedians and they'll do stage shows and shit, and then they'll go, right, I've now got a gig doing like a news show, and I'll chuck a few gags in there, and that makes it difficult to ascertain as well, because like they are a comedian, but they're then doing a news show. And I guess the issue here, and I think that the Steven Crowder thing is probably the best example, because Steven Crowder calls himself a comedian. What defense, if any, does that give him, and why would that not then
The
apply
same
to
defense
you
it would
as
give
well?
any of us, I would say. 100%.
Well, that's why I don't think we should do it.
Okay.
Stephen Crowder's a
don't
bad
argue
That's
that
fine if
example.
you want. I
to
mean, I
use
just
Mr. Girl.
disagree. I think that one problem in your head is you think that when I say that it's comedy, that gives you carte blanche to say or do anything. You can still be responsible
No.
within the realm of
No,
comedy.
I understand. Like we all do comedy from time to time. I'm just saying we're not comedians that are. So.
Okay,
like
what
a
is the difference between
comedian-
like the responsibility of a comedian versus just a normal like person? I'm just curious. What do you think is the difference? Because I don't see any difference in the responsibility whatsoever.
You're not a normal person. You are a political fucking giant. You're not a normal person. And like Trump isn't a normal person. Right? Like people with huge followings and huge amounts of political influence are not normal people. I would say me and Chud aren't even normal people. So I
don't disagree.
the
I'm
real
trying to
question
find
is-
what's the difference in what you think the responsibility should be
Okay,
between like me and a
okay, so
comedian.
the
yeah.
real
The difference is that a comedian should never worry if people are going to think they're joking or not. If you're streaming, you're probably going to have to, whether you should or not, you're probably going to have to have some kind of indicator that you're joking, whether it be tone, inflection, something like that. That's it. That's the only difference.
The difference is that people are looking to
It should
you
not be immediately assumed that you're
to
joking always.
figure out what they think about politics, and people are not generally looking to Louis C.K. to figure out what they think about politics.
Whether you're trying to
People
figure it or
look up
not, do you not think that people are influenced by the types of jokes or things that these people say?
They
That's
are.
not the point.
They are, but that's not. Those are similarities. You're asking me about differences. The difference is a fan of you or a fan of me or a fan of Chud is looking
That was
up
good.
to us politically.
Okay,
And
I
you
don't
have
think
a
that
huge fan base.
Sure. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think that difference matters. But
Okay.
So I guess the concept then.
What a weird fucking hill to die on. Also, these three conversations are the only time that I've ever seen, like even previous Mr. Girl and Destiny conversations where they disagreed. I wouldn't say that like Destiny lost any like debate points. This series of conversations is the only time I ever thought Destiny like hard lost debate at all. I personally think Stardust was totally at fault in the relationship collapsing. Very little accountability taken, to be honest. I'm I guess to me, I don't really care whose fault it is. That kind of stuff is like kind of weird for me to like declare or comment on. Because I know that like relationships are like complicated and weird sometimes. But I just don't think that either wait. The thing that Stardust did wrong was like blame Mr. Girl after the fact. In and of the conversation itself, they were both fine to act exactly the way they did, even though it was uncomfortable, whatever. After the conversation was over, that's where something that I can say, like, you did something wrong here. That's it. But within the conversation itself, I don't think that either of them, either they both were doing something wrong, which I don't agree with, or neither of them did anything wrong, which I do agree with. I think those are your only two options.
Because there's some level
and
of...
if they both did something wrong, I think you'd have to say it was equal on both sides.
This looking up this happening, the concern is
But I think
rooted
that's
in
the
this idea
unreasonable
of like
position
going
to
for a
take.
friendly meal with Nick Fuentes, even if you're, you know, having a disagreement with him at some point, is a problem, right? That's...
This is when Chud actually cared about things. This is what Chud wanted to talk about, and Mr. Girl signed on to it. And take notice right now. This is such an important part of this that nobody seems to catch. Chud, I'm gonna even rewind it, like 10 seconds.
Your turn is...
Chud is going to bring up the Nick Fuentes thing. He's talking about what he thinks about it. And Mr. Girl agreed to have this conversation. Mr. Girl and Chud agreed to have this conversation, talked about having this conversation with Destiny. Like, between each other, they're like, we need to talk to Destiny about this. Yes, okay. Yes, okay. Got Destiny in here. Chud is giving his take on it. And once Mr. Girl gets onto that point, Chud cuts the point loose and leaves Mr. Girl out on his own. This is fucked up. Destiny's presuming he's a normal person. Says a lot about... He's a normal person. Says a lot about how little he thinks of how big his online presence is really. No, I think that is... So this isn't even me like being judgmental or anything. I think this is basically necessary at Destiny's size. I just think that's the kind of thing you have to say to like... That's like his insurance policy, right? That's just what he says to like be able to cover his ass. And you should.
Is
otherwise,
rooted in this idea of like...
You have to do something, otherwise people are just going to eat you alive all the time.
Like going for a friendly meal with Nick Fuentes, even if you're, you know, having a disagreement with him at some point, is a problem, right? That's kind of where we are with this, I guess.
Shit. Sorry, I talked over it.
Fuentes, even if you're, you know, having a disagreement with him at some point, is a problem, right? That's kind of where we are with this, I guess.
Well, get into it. What do you want to say?
Okay. I have some things to say about it.
So Chud just said that having a meal with Fuentes, even if you're going to disagree at some point, is a problem. This is Chud's position on this matter. This is super important. It seems like everybody forgot about it as soon as he was done talking about it.
Okay, right. This is so. Okay. Sorry. Listen, I just want to say, because me and Mr. Girl have obviously, you know, we planned this ambush very, you know, in a lot of detail. I haven't really. We just spoke about.
What did I say? This is the part I remembered. They discussed between each other. They wanted to talk to Destiny about this. Okay, this was planned. They were both on the same page. Came to Destiny.
About it, you know, behind the scenes. I'm sure he doesn't mind me revealing a few non-specific details that flesh it out a bit. But there's been times where I've soyed out a bit when I've seen something you're doing. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This sounds
I'm gonna
crazy.
get some water.
But then when I watch the content, I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem as
Was that on the video?
bad as I thought. Like some of
I'll
the
just
ways
get water,
it's
I'll be right
described
back.
on Twitter and stuff, obviously you buy into it a little bit, and then lo and behold, you look at it and you're like, no, Destiny's gone on and fucking slammed Nick Fuentes in this, Sneeko conversation, and then it's the same thing where I'll be like, fuck me, you went for dinner with Nick Fuentes, what the hell? And then I watch it and I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem quite as bad as I thought. So I keep having this problem where I have a reaction to it, and there's been times where I've messaged Mr. Girl and been like, "Oh, what's going on here? What's all this about? Have you seen this? This is crazy." And then I watch it, and I'm a bit more like, "Okay, well that's fine." And then Mr. Girl gets freaked out because I've watched it and I'm not freaking out like I was before. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but I do understand having like an emotional response or an emotional reaction to the idea of it happening. The problem I have is like, what's the actual harm or what's the actual outcome off the back of, even if you think it's bad, even if you think there's bad things happening, what is actually going to happen at the other end? Like, are we going to have the Fourth Reich? Are we going to have a Holocaust? Like, probably not. So what is the issue,
I disagree with that. I think Holocaust and genocide are the normal state of humanity, and that it requires people who are actually going to prevent them in power to avoid.
Kind of hard
So,
to argue with.
The idea that we're never going to commit genocide or some form
Oh wait,
of like
no, come on,
mass
mate. That's fucking
atrocity.
bullshit. I'm not saying we're never going to commit an atrocity. Okay, holding back
So
the
then
joke
what are you
still.
saying?
What I'm saying is, I don't see how we're going to have it's like people act like Nick Fuentes and Destiny having chicken and waffles is going to lead to the Fourth Reich and a Holocaust, and I just don't see that.
That's a straw
myself.
man. That's a straw man. That's not.
Well, you
Yeah.
just straw man
Yeah,
me,
if
so
you-
I straw man you. Fuck
Wait, what's a dumb position to hold? Which part?
you. There we go.
I'm not straw manning. I'm saying that's like saying if you litter, you're killing all the whales. Like it's not in a, you're kind of expanding the outcome of a pretty small.
Sure. So
occurrence.
you could say, okay, if you litter,
But that's-
right, that's bad for the
Yeah.
for the town that you're in, and it makes it look like shit. So throw your rubbish away, right? So how would you
You're rubbish.
strap that on to the idea of Destiny having dinner with Nick Fuentes, for example?
That's why it's so hard for me to take. Sometimes it's hard for me to take British people serious because they say words like rubbish instead of garbage, and it just sounds silly. Genocide's not normal, or that genocide is normal. Like, you look at human history, it's been pretty much like, we don't like those people, so we're going to kill. Like, we have a dispute with them, we're going to try to kill all of them that we can, because we don't want them to be around anymore. Like, historically, we do that like quite a bit. We're not super shy about, like, historically we haven't been super shy about it. Like, yeah, of course we killed all of them. Sure, but tribalism and the way that we go about reacting towards it is normal. It's not good. There's a lot more pushback against it now, but that's the thing, is that we have to push back against it. This is something that, like, humanity as a whole has to fight against. It's not something that we it's not like something that we just sort of like fall into here and there. It seems like this is a constant behavioral pattern throughout human history, that in order for it to not happen, we have to resist it. I think that's what's being meant by
I
normal
believe
here.
that by having dinner with Nick Fuentes, Stephen, you're sanitizing. You're sanitizing him.
Okay.
Yeah, Emery, you said it.
That's probably true to some extent, yeah.
Israel, Palestine,
And
Like, you don't have to know anything about it. All you have to do is have a Twitter account and see how quickly people are calling things genocide. People say it's not genocide, or like, okay, maybe it is genocide, but it's good. Like, it's a madhouse.
I see it in your subreddit. I gotta stop reading your subreddit, but I see
But
it in your subreddit.
It's not
People
surprising.
There's a lot of jokes like, "Oh, because I saw Steven and Nick have waffles. Now I'm a Nazi," or like, "Now I want there to be a Holocaust." Blah blah. And like, it seems like the general response of your community is, "We're not brainwashable. We're not influenceable. We're too."
Because of this conversation, I actually made a video where I physically took a red pill, and my wife tries to stop me, and I said Destiny had chicken and waffles with Nick Fuentes, and then I take it,
Smart.
and I become my my satire character Elder Nazi, which is why I have this Trump Punisher sticker on my chair. Did it for a bit on an Erudite panel thing. I don't consider it to be genocide. Genocide to me is a very particular thing. It's really interesting. The whole subject about what is and isn't genocide. I've shaped my opinions on it based pretty much wholly on a conversation that Will and his channel and I had with a guy who exclusively studies genocide. Like, he's a genocide expert. And so, like, right now with Israel Palestine, I don't know. Basically, we can't tell if something's a genocide until after the fact. That was what I have come to understand about genocide, is that we can say that things are pointing towards genocide. People are acting, things are moving in a genocidal direction. Oh, pardon me. But it's not until the conflict is over with can we decide whether or not it was actually a genocide, technically speaking.
For Fuentes to.
That is what
screw
I
with our
understand from
heads.
speaking to the expert myself.
And then there's another like line that's like, well, Fuentes is just an awkward kid. He's like me. I'm his.
And for credentials wise, they are currently studying at or like they're working at but I don't think they're a student, but they're like researching at Michigan University, which is a really, really good university.
His age, we would play Minecraft together. It's like, this guy tried to overthrow the fucking government. He's not a normal kid like you. He's like a radicalized, like, political, like, possible terrorist, or like.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If I can't call Nick Fuentes a Nazi, then if you can't call Nick Fuentes a Nazi, then nobody's a Nazi. Then the word actually doesn't mean anything. But if the word has any retained meaning from the time when we were at World War II, and if the word has survived today in any meaningful way to what it used to mean, then Nick Fuentes is. And if he's not, then then we just have to use a new word always for it.
Like committing treason. Like, yeah, he might play Minecraft. Like, yeah, like it is weird to see somebody who does things like that and then see like their human normal side and be like, oh, they're like a normal person. But that doesn't. That is sanitization at work. I feel like, I don't know. I've turned down every possible appearance with Fuentes, and I think I've said through our I've never spoken to him directly, but through our intermediaries, I've said the only way I will talk to Fuentes is in a one-on-one conversation that's like an interview. And the same thing with Lauren Southern. Like, originally I was supposed to play video games with Lauren Southern. We were going to play Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out about her like boat thing, and I was like, well, I don't really want to talk to her about anything except the boat thing. And so I'm not saying I won't talk to her, and I'm not saying I don't think you should talk to Fuentes, but in the Giga Chad thing is the reason I think you.
Oh yeah, I thought Destiny was trying to keep the content bred with Nick at this point, so he tiptoed around calling him a Nazi. That's correct, and that's why he lost debating Mr. Girl lost to Mr. Girl debating it so badly. And I don't know how he was able to pull this magic trick of getting people to think that all Mr. Girl wanted was for Destiny to call him a Nazi, which is the most insane thing you could say about watching it, when it's clearly, and I mean, I'm going to definitely repeat this later, the conversation, he wanted him to pick a definition of Nazi and say if Nick Fuentes was or wasn't. He just wanted him to give a clear answer, yes or no. That's it. That was all. He didn't want him to call him a Nazi. And I've had people furious with me for not agreeing that he just wanted Destiny to call him a Nazi. Or 4, imposing measures intended to prevent births forcibly transferring children. Yes, that is one of the criteria. Wait, how did I get switched to top chat again? Okay. Okay, I didn't miss anything.
You shouldn't have dinner with Fuentes because you and him make the same jokes. Like, when you're joking around with him, you're making fun of progressives. And when conservatives joke around, they also make fun of progressives. The joke, he pretends to be a Nazi, and when you joke around, you pretend to be a Nazi, but he's actually a Nazi. And so it just feels like because of this dynamic, it makes it, and because Nick Fuentes has said explicitly that he uses humor and irony as a way to get his Holocaust denial or racism, to give cover to it. He's literally said that explicitly. That makes it even more like dangerous.
That is really tough to come back from. When you say that, it's really hard to say I'm just kidding after that.
You're not worried you're getting used by Nick Fuentes?
Well, I mean, we're trying to use each other as much as possible.
That's a weird dynamic, though, right?
Yeah, it is. That's welcome to online politics. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there's like two main different strategies when it comes to dealing with people that are severely politically misaligned with you. I'll say that, severely politically misaligned. So one avenue that we kind of experimented with online was ban, censor, disengage, don't platform. And we did that relentlessly for 3 to 4 years. When I look at the communities that were in charge of that, all of them are dead and gone. BreadTube is gone. That subreddit, if I go and check, probably has like, there's no more engagement there. All of the big BreadTubers, when people were talking about like them rising up and taking over, there's 114 active users on BreadTube right now. Every thread is 1 comment, 2, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 32, 0, 1. This subreddit is dead. All of the BreadTubers, the big BreadTubers, are dead. A couple of the big ones that are kind of hanging on, like Vosh, are kind of like have either plateaued or are falling off. And then some of the big video essayists, like Counterpoints and Philosophy Group, have largely kind of like moved out of doing the hardcore political stuff. So it feels like that project of deplatform, disengage, don't address those people. One, not only are they all dead and gone, 2, I don't think any of those people converted anybody. Maybe they got really radical people from the right and made them really radical people on the left. But I find that most of those communities have only served to re-radicalize people, not de-radicalize people. Most people that I would see in like the hardcore BreadTube communities are about as harmful or bad for society as most people that are in the far right communities. They have a huge disengagement with the current political system. They have a huge disavowal with the current establishment, and it ends up causing them to horseshoe together on some positions that I would have never imagined. For instance, disavowing.
It's weird. I don't know why Destiny is taking this kind of a position without really talking about where he fits into it, because he was a part of this as well. Notice how Destiny's main focus here is to try to paint Mr. Girl's position as don't interact and make content with Mr. Girl, rather than engaging with Mr. Girl's actual position. I'm assuming you mean Nick Fuentes. Yeah. It's really disingenuous here. And it's like the second time that he's done this, which is don't buddy with Nazis and help cover for Nick on whether or not he's a Nazi. Yeah, it's exactly it. Like, if you're going to do all these things, do it. If you're going to do it in a way that I don't want, that's fine. But your messaging on whether or not he's an actual Nazi should be clear. People should understand why you're engaging with him clearly. If it's to steal his fans away, like Destiny's going to say that it is, great, you can do that. But when you get those fans over into the fans that you currently have watching him, they should understand that you understand what his real positions are. And if they're this harmful, then you should be open to what you actually think about it.
Our support of Ukraine in favor of Russia, because
and the big problem with not taking that hard position is, so if Destiny says, yeah, I do think he's a Nazi, then cool. Mr. Girl can say, all right, we don't agree. And then if I have an issue with how you're engaging with him, after that, we can talk about it because you and I both agree that he's a Nazi. And now we can talk about how we should engage with Nazis when we have large platforms. When you don't take this position, or sorry, if you say, I do think, or I don't think that he's a Nazi, now we can have a conversation about whether or not I agree with that or not. But by not taking this position, it stops the important conversation from actually happening. One of these two conversations are bound to follow, and they are not allowed to be had by not giving an honest answer to the question, which is, if you're in Mr. Girl's position, maddening, because there's one of two conversations that you feel like really need to be had, and you're just not allowed to have them. But you're going to keep pretending like you're answering my question, and you're not, which is going to keep me from actually trying to talk to you about a thing that's actually pretty important on like a large scale and a personal level. So I don't blame Mr. Girl at all for getting really upset about this and
Because
frustrated.
on the right, they think that Russian values are something that we should push for. And because on the left, they think that American imperialism is always wrong and there are Nazis in Ukraine. So for effectiveness of the project, it seems like it failed on two fronts. One, the channels died because they were boring and sucked. And two, they didn't really penetrate any other communities. You didn't see these people, besides really me and Vosh, making headway into arguing with other people or gaining respect or gaining some kind of hold or having some kind of penetration into the other communities on the right. So let's say all of that's true. Let's assume that's true. It is. I've lived it. So let's put.
But
I'm not going to get to finish. No, hold on. I'm going to keep talking until
Okay,
you stop. No, wait.
Let's let this.
What? No, I don't want to.
Let Destiny finish. Well, let's let
You can ask a quick question. Hold on. You can ask a quick question.
He's deliberately misunderstanding to confuse his audience and possibly confuse Mr. Girl and Chud as well. It's part of gaslighting. Intuitively, I don't want to agree with you, but looking at the end result, where it's such a large amount of people don't see the obvious thing that happens throughout it, like, I have to agree, because I'd be like, no, that's not what's happening, because, like, it's not fooling me. He seems like he's just arguing because he doesn't want to lose or whatever. But seeing the end result and seeing how many people actually think that this was a conversation about Mr. Girl trying to convince Destiny to call Nick a Nazi, then yeah, it seems like that's exactly what it was. I'm telling you, Destiny is smarter than what he is acting like right now. I promise you, it's intentional. Yeah. Like I'm saying, the intuitive feeling for me is to say, no, that's not it. But when I look at the end result, knowing that Destiny is in fact very, very smart, then I have to go, yeah, I do agree, because the end result is that people are, at large, very, very gaslit about this. They don't understand what even happened in front of, like, the facts about what had occurred in this conversation are lost on people, which is insane to me.
Question if you want, but you just
It's
laid out
not
your
really
whole shit.
up for
So I'm not gonna let you cut me
interpretation.
off when I'm trying to lay out my whole shit. So, but you can
The
ask a
part
quick
that I
question.
said.
Go.
Okay.
At least.
Do you acknowledge that they are not horseshoeing on ethnic cleansing?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that one now. When I see all of the stuff talking about like these huge tweets blowing up.
And I'll say this right now. If anybody can, because I'm going to go through all three of these, maybe not tonight, but this week at least, because I'm feeling better. I'm back. I'm going to be streaming like every night that I can, unless the woman my wife and I are seeing comes over. I'm going to stream every night, trying to make up for lost time here. If anybody finds a single instance during any of these streams where Mr. Girl directly asks Destiny to call him a Nazi, or just pushes him to do, just call him one, without like, yeah, if that happens, call me on it, and I will make a 30-minute long video talking about just how fucking wrong I was, and I will apologize to fucking everybody. But you're not gonna find it, because that never ever happens.
About how important it is that black people can maintain bloodline purity.
Hey,
when I
Elk.
see talk about like getting rid of colonizers from Western countries, that type of stuff is getting very close to it. A lot of that.
We're watching the video that leads to Mr. Girl begging Destiny to call Nick Fuentes a Nazi. I'm just kidding. I don't think you heard all the stuff I just said a minute ago.
Rhetoric is indistinguishable from, actually, it's more extreme than what Nick Fuentes would say now. So I can't answer that question.
The trouble is, I do think that there are.
Oh yeah, no, wait, hold on, no, I want to finish my thing.
Okay,
I'm not going to let him lay out his whole world order without me giving my counter.
Yeah, go on.
Okay?
Sure.
Full world order.
When I look at my engagement with these other communities, I'm trying to contextualize it in the realm of what is happening today politically in the United States and largely in the entire Western world. Okay, so right now,
I gotta pause it for a minute. My wife's phone battery just came in. I kept ordering it and it didn't come in. When I replaced her phone screen, her battery got slightly damaged because it was glued in with like 12 pounds of glue. Me like 30 seconds. I just want to bring it in so nobody steals it. Your battery's here. I don't think anybody would steal the battery, but with how bad of luck I've had getting it delivered, not taking any chances. My poor wife's been without her phone for like a week and a half, 2 weeks now.
I feel like our biggest problem is everybody is becoming more and more divided over how we see the world. That more people are moving into these very homogenous, ideologically pure groups, and that's kind of the trend that we've been working towards. So if that is the case, my goal that aligns with what I would want to see happen politically and with my unique talents is
more extreme. Notice the downplaying of Fuentes' political motivations when he compares to vague leftists who have batshit views. Yeah, those things are glued in strong. Best bet is to slightly heat when separating. I didn't want to use my heat gun because it only has one setting. And, like, heat and batteries aren't the best mix, so I actually used rubbing alcohol for it to loosen it, which is fine. Only problem is I didn't notice I slightly nicked the battery with my pry tool, and some rubbing alcohol got into it. Such little rubbing alcohol got into it that it worked fine for like a week, and then I guess whatever happened, it moved around the wrong way, and then I ended up frying it. We knew that's what happened because you could smell the rubbing alcohol coming from the phone. I was so pissed. I've never had that happen before, but the Galaxies they're really, really glued.
I'm able to go to other communities. I'm able to maintain my ideological purity. I'm not a fucking Nazi. I haven't turned into a conservative. I'm not turning into a white supremacist. And I'm able to penetrate these communities using things like humor, affability, willingness to have conversation or debate, and willingness to debate on hard grounds like fact and logic. I'm able to make headways in these communities like nobody else from my side of the political aisle has ever done before. If you want to...
What Destiny just said is true. He has done that. And if anybody can talk to Nick Fuentes and steal more fans from him than Nick Fuentes steals from them, I would trust Destiny to do it. However, that's not the issue. Okay, cool. And I got water filters. Because I don't like paying for bottled water.
Criticize that there are times when I'm a bit too kind or I don't push back enough. There's tons of criticisms there. Or there's tons of like valid points. You go like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't do this way. Maybe we shouldn't do that way. But like, I think that I'm in a unique position that nobody else on the left is able to be in. And I'm not going to go back to like, oh, deplatform, get rid of blah, 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 blah. Because I see that as an entirely failed model for all of Western politics. And I don't want to go.
This is a straw man as fuck of what Mr. Girl is trying to say here. I thought this was really bad when it first happened. Seeing mom and dad argue nonstop till they break up. Actually, it might be this one. If it's not this one, it's the next one. Destiny actually does. It sucks so bad because he actually gave me a lot of hope in it. Because like I said, I think he just like lost the debate. But he was talking to Mr. Girl at one point, and he says, I did end up using a hairdryer for part of the phone. Sorry. He acknowledges that he's being like way more debatey than he should be with Mr. Girl because Mr. Girl's not being like that to him, and he tones it down. And I was like, wow, that's really fucking cool. I don't know if I've seen Destiny do that before. That's what's up. And so I thought this would be pretty good, and then it just didn't end up being the way that probably should have went. Yeah, I actually have a hairdryer specifically for like phone screens and tablet screens. Heat guns make me nervous on LCDs and stuff.
Go down that road again because I feel like it's already failed.
Cool.
Well, I don't want you to go down that road either.
Oh, cool little tweezers.
I don't think Fuentes should be deplatformed.
Okay.
But you don't have to grow him either.
That, I mean, it's going to be inevitable that anybody that I react with or engage with in some manner is going to experience some growth if they're smaller than me. That's just
don't know if you know anything about phone batteries, but that's a huge fucking battery. It's like probably 66% bigger than what it heard his one was before.
Absolutely.
Capacity,
Yeah, it
not
is. But I
size.
think that you, I think because of that, the way that you interact with them is pretty crucial. So, I'm not saying like if you had a debate with Fuentes, like if you debate Fuentes on the Holocaust, anti-Semitism, racism, ethno-state, Christian nationalism, whatever, any of those topics, I would have no negative reaction to that at all. I mean, like I've talked to Richard Spencer.
Yeah, their
Sure, I
conversation's
understand.
fine right
but
now.
I think the goal is what I'm trying to do is take it one step further. I can do the debate, but I don't want to come off as an overly hostile person all the time in these communities. Like, I want to be seen as somebody that can joke with them, that can, more importantly, understand what they're saying. And then 3, engage in a more friendly manner, because you always have a higher chance of kind of like reconfiguring somebody's mind rather than just being overtly combative.
But Nick Fuentes wants to come off to your community as somebody who is not always hostile, who can engage in a friendly manner, who's open-minded and understands the concerns of your viewers.
I understand.
Right.
And if he's able to do that in a successful way, then I hope my whole viewership turns into Nazis and they go march on the Third Reich. This is what I've spent the better part of the last 10 years working towards. If I can't hold on to my fan base and I lose them all to a convincing Nazi, then fuck me. Then I deserve it. And you know what? Maybe it's a better ideology. Fuck it. If it's that hard to hold people towards liberalism or progressive ideas, then it was always doomed to fail anyway. Like,
joke with foreshadowing. No spoilers, Elk.
there are aspects of my
this is gonna turn
engagement with
out.
Fuentes that upset people, but I can talk about things with him in a context with him that I could have only dreamed of 2 or 3 years ago. I can preach until I'm blue in the face about the importance of like social welfare and how important it is to take care of the underdog, blah, 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 blah. But in a totally organic setting, I can get a far right Christian nationalist to ask me, hey, why do you think the things you do about like progressive values? And I can get him to ask me that question in a genuine manner, and I'm able to talk about it. Him asking that and giving me the opportunity to talk about that in front of his audience, that's a type of access to their empathy that was unattainable before. I could have never done something like that before, just screaming about how important social welfare is in the middle of a debate.
This is true.
But
To do
at the
anything to
same
keep
time,
growing
you're
his
giving
fan
him
base, Nick Fuentes, he wouldn't
more
let Nick Fuentes
access
take
to
them
a
away.
much
I reckon.
larger
Community, sure, I am.
pool of people.
Yep. But I mean that's the trade-off. There's always going to be it's like being vulnerable with an audience. The more vulnerable I am, the more access you get to me and the more you can hate me too. But I mean that's always going to be the trade-off, is that as you enter these communities more and more, yeah, theoretically they could turn your audience, but I mean if you think you're fighting for the right stuff or believe the right stuff, like hopefully you can hold on to that. But go, yeah.
But I don't think you're I don't think the framing of you would lose your audience to him is right. I think that they'll stay with you because you're friends with him. They can be Nazis and be fans of you. You now have Nazi fans.
Probably.
The idea that the idea that a white nationalist doesn't like you because they can't tolerate hearing anything slightly different from their ideology. They don't have to leave your community to become Nazis now.
But I want that. I want there to be because if you are following me for long enough...
Do you want your own community to turn into Nazis?
No.
Obviously not,
The
right?
goal, the idea is generally what I would feel is that if a figurehead is sitting at the top of the community, slowly over time, that community is going to look more and more like that figurehead. That's probably always going to be the case with any community. I don't need a community full of progressives to listen to me preach to them every day about systemic racism and, you know, why we should support Biden or why Republicans are quasi-fascist now under Trump. I don't want to preach to them about that. I don't care about that. They already believe that. They can go to Vosh and get those opinions. But if I can get people that are ideologically incredibly different than me and my fan base, which I'm seeing show up all over my subreddit, all over my YouTube comments, in negative ways on my Twitter, and in my emails, like these are people that slowly over time can hopefully get a bigger buy-in into the things that I talk about. That's the goal. And I don't see any other way to get those people to watch me other than to show them that like I can be in your communities with a level of understanding and humor that makes me like an empathetic character.
I think I know the answer to this already, but I'll ask it nonetheless for everyone else. So obviously, you know, you're doing this with Nick Fuentes. What would be the reason that you wouldn't do this with like communists or other people with like extremist ideology?
Yeah, he he 100% boss. Destiny is very, very sure of himself, and he does not for a minute think that he could possibly lose his audience to Nick Fuentes, but he can't say that because he knows that this is not a realistic um, position that anybody could actually have, because you know that it is in theory possible, but he can't just say like, well, obviously, I'm the shit, so it's not going to happen. Because he knows that nobody will accept that, because it's not true. It could absolutely happen to literally anybody. So yeah, it is hyperbole, and I think that it was not great to use it here. Because I really do think that this conversation in general is a pretty important one for the space. I think this is the kind of conversation that I don't even think that it's remembered properly by most people. But I think that when this kind of thing gets brought up, that this is sort of like the standard for how people are going to look at engaging with people that have severely problematic positions in the space. Shit. I think I recluded in good. He would be normalizing and sanitizing and be buddy with Nazis. Some people can be super responsible when handling certain relationships with people like that, but most cannot without failing or falling into Nazi ideology because they aren't responsible mature. Destiny often forgets a lot of young people watch him. It's not just grown adults. That's actually a really good point. I often don't think of that because I'm not a child, but like even my kid, I think when my kid was 13, there was this whole drama with Prime and Dylan and Samantha. My kid was pretty glued to that. So yeah, Destiny can appeal to much younger people. I have seen it. I guess I just don't think of it that often. My kid was like super present for that though. I always thought it was really cool. It was like the only like political stream my kid was like, "Oh, you're watching the rest of that? All right, let's go." It is a good point. He has a young, impressionable fan base. Yeah, I would say so.
Jeez, knowing you've done it before, but like, why Fuentes now rather than a communist?
There's two big problems with it. One is that far left people are far more frightening to deal with because they can harm me so much more. There is nothing that a far right person can do unless somebody tries to come and kill me. Like, other than that, I'm untouchable. Okay, these guys are radioactive on every platform they are on. They can't they have none of the institutional levers of power to do anything to me. I am 100% fine. I'd rather have a forum full of 1 million Nazis hating me than 1,000 dedicated progressives because these guys can destroy your fucking life. So one.
Sorry to be like looking down. I'm trying to put my wife's battery in her phone. She doesn't deserve to wait any longer. But I won't talk about it anymore after this. I just looked at this battery. The new one is like twice the size. I'm actually like jealous. I kind of want to replace my own battery with one of these. Wasn't that expensive either. Pretty crazy.
One, the risk is way higher dealing with far left people. Two, because of the types of communities that far left people have, I don't think that far left people have a problem of not being heard. Far left people, I think, have the problem of being listened to too much. Their opinions and their ideas and their emotions are over-validated by other people in society. So for me to fight with that over-validation is almost impossible because my message is going to be hard and rough for a lot of these people to hear. Whereas people on the right, I think they have the opposite problem where they lack validation. They lack people to listen to them. So when I show up to a right-leaning person and I'm like, hey, listen, I know why this shit makes you uncomfortable. I know why it's fucking cringe when people type, you know, the Mayo side and shit. I understand that. That desire to be heard and understood, I think, is one of the biggest problems of right-leaning people right now on the internet, is you feel like there are no voices that represent you that aren't totally censored off all platforms and everything else. Whereas on the left, it's the exact opposite. So it's a way harder issue to fight into, I think.
Sure, okay. Obviously, you have been definitely maligned and treated unfairly by sort of figures on the left. Do you feel that any of your emotional response to that has influenced your decision making on any of this stuff?
When it comes to dealing with individuals, probably. But when it comes to my political philosophy and how I conduct myself on the internet, absolutely not. People don't believe. It's funny because we're going through both things. Like, I used to treat left-leaning people with fucking kids. I just treated Aiko with fucking kids gloves. I could have fucking shredded her for all the stupid shit she said, for all the logs that people are sending me now of mods, but I didn't because it's not fucking worth it. And even Merrick, I'm being soft on Twitter given the unbelievable amount of historically stupid shit she said about me. But yeah, I can understand why I come off like meaner towards left-wing people. But again, I think it's because they have so much more power and validation on their side that they feel like they can lay into me so much harder and they can actually do damage to me, whereas people on the right just don't have that power. So they're easier to deal with in a manner, and they're hungry for people that understand them, I think.
Okay.
I think all that's pretty true.
Okay.
If it's the same physical size, it's unlikely to be a higher capacity. There's a lot of marketing incentives to advertise as higher. That's true. That's super true. If it's not, though, as advertised, I'm going to get some money back. Look, I always assume that the product is legit first, unless there's like some crazy discrepancy, like those like 2 terabyte flash drives that are really just like 2 like fucking 2 gigabyte fucking SD cards like taped or glued into a flash drive stick. Ridiculous. They just break instantly as soon as you plug them in. But yeah, I'll be checking it out.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think that. I guess one thing I do want to ask as well is, do you understand? I appreciate there's like a extremist response where people call you a Nazi and shit, sure. But do you maybe understand why some people feel uncomfortable or wary about you going to dinner with like someone like Nick Fuentes?
I understand everything. I understand every point of view simultaneously and all at once. Okay. Yes. Right? The feeling is that from their point of view, somebody like Nick Fuentes has slowly kind of fettered out of reality. He's not somebody that anybody talks about anymore. He's kind of an irrelevant figure. And now all of a sudden, not only am I engaging him in hostile debate, I'm presenting him to my community, which is growing at unprecedented rates, and I'm putting him in front of an entirely new audience to reach out to that he might have never had access to before. So people have this fear in their mind that if I engage with him in a friendly manner, that I'm going to turn him into the next Hassan or Vosh because I'm going to siphon off a huge portion of my community to go become Nazis and follow him. And there's no reason for me to do that other than the selfish pursuits of profits or viewership on my channel. I think that's like the main problem that people have with me.
Okay. Yeah, because the thing is like I say, sorry, I just want to say this quickly. Like I say, when I watch the conversations, and I admit I've not watched every second of every piece of content, you know, I think, yeah, okay, you've done a good job here, fair enough. But I think that, you know, I understand why people kind of get frustrated. But I think my concerns probably align somewhat with Mr. Girl's, but it's more so like your community that can be really fucking annoying sometimes. But it comes back to how responsible are you for that? Because one thing I know is that your community sometimes they'll have this response where it's like, come on guys, what's the problem with debating Nick Fuentes? We've got to debate bad ideas. And then the goalpost just gets shifted slowly to like, well, come on guys, what's the problem with having dinner with Nick Fuentes? You know, and it's just.
You guys think that this position from Chud here has aged poorly? I don't know. I don't think Chud would say the same thing today. If he did, I think he'd turn a few heads. That's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. And I say it, and it's a balancing game that I have to play, and I understand like there's a responsibility, and sometimes I might not go far enough, sometimes I might go too far. Like, it's a struggle. Like it's there's a lot that I'm trying to balance, a lot of plates spinning in the air. Of course, I understand that. But like the other side, I think has wholly failed in what they've attempted to do, like spectacularly failed. And when I see how crybaby and disgusting and unempathetic and mind-fucked it is, like watching people on the left try to engage people they disagree with, like. People always say like, oh, well, Destiny, can't you be empathetic towards those other people?
Jesus.
Hold on.
Okay.
Obviously some noise, so We're just waiting.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. People will look at me and they'll be like, "Oh, Destiny, can't you be empathetic towards them?" Yeah, I guess, but like, can you guys be empathetic towards any of the right wingers that feel like they have no voice on the internet? Any of the people that like were like, "Oh, I think it's okay to be white," and got banned off of like platforms or saying, or any, and they're like, "No, those people are racist and evil. That's different. You should feel bad for us because we're righteous and good, and we're people of color and trans. But the other people are fucking evil. They're ontologically evil. They're Nazis. They're racist. It's like, no, well, fuck you. If as far as the left shows empathy to the right, it's non-existent. So for them to beg me for empathy when all of their platforms are failing and they fail to penetrate any of these communities at all is rich to me. I don't enjoy that.
That's a fair point.
I don't think. Okay. When you say the right, I feel like you're giving cover for Fuentes.
I disagree.
It's not just.
But go ahead.
The idea that fascism, ethnic cleansing, and overthrowing your government, your Republican government, are extensions of the right is, I don't agree with that. I think that's insane.
I 5 years ago, I would have agreed with you, but I think that Nick has shifted a little bit more to the left in getting rid of the ultra extremist, at least the anti-Semitic rhetoric, and I think that the main Republican Party has shifted significantly to the right. So when we talk about like problematic things that Fuentes says, that's true, but today 70% of the Republican Party thinks that the election was stolen. It's like, I think that the Republican Party is
thinking the election is stolen is different from storming the Capitol.
No, you're. Oh, sorry, that is not true. There is a 10-foot bridge from A to B. The Capitol was stormed because they thought the election was stolen.
It's not 10 foot. No, that's insane. It's not 10 feet from believing in a conspiracy to going and risking your life to try to act on believing that conspiracy.
I think they're right connected to each other. It's right there.
I think I'm probably a little more middle class.
Why were there only a couple thousand people there?
I don't know why there were how many people.
Republicans, if 70% of Republicans,
depending on what you mean when you say the change in Chud is in your head or not, I probably agree. Chud has changed since this conversation here, and I've been wondering more and more. I wonder if the biggest change happened after he showed his face. It's kind of hard for me to pinpoint, but I used to find Chud to be like a lot more likable and relatable in general. And I've been saying this, like, this is literally nothing to do with, like, I don't hold Chud responsible for any of the drama between me and Spicy. I hold specifically the people in Spicy that did it responsible for their own actions. That's it. So like, I don't have any ill will towards Chud, not like personally at least, but I think that he used to be better. I like by my specifically my standards, he used to be better, not like objectively better or whatever. I think he used to be more responsible, and still just as funny and shit. But
think that the election was stolen.
Yeah,
Why weren't there 10 million people storming
pretty
the Capitol?
noticeable shift.
Because I don't know how many of them had the money to fly out for the inauguration or whatever.
That's not why.
The problem is as well.
There's a difference between vaguely believing in a conspiracy theory and actually believing that you have a fucking direct connection to God telling you to go storm the Capitol and then going and doing it.
I don't have an answer for why more people didn't fly in, but like what I know today,
because they're not fucking insane. Nick Fuentes is insane.
I disagree.
Do you think Nick Fuentes is insane?
I don't even like the word insane. He's very far right. I would agree with that, for sure.
Okay.
But I think the average Republican Party, this is what I think. If Trump came out as a fascist leader, I think that over 51% of the Republican Party would support him in the overthrow of the government. I think they would. And that's where we're at right now. Over half of them believe that the election was rigged.
Yeah.
How many supported him, like sending the military to build the wall? How many supported him, like unilaterally
supporting him is different from going.
I don't know how many people would go for it. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so like, I just like you're doing the thing that people do all the time. You have incels, and then you have mass shooters.
Okay.
And then like they might have some beliefs in common, but there's a big fucking difference between I'm an incel and blah 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 blah, and I'm actually going to go shoot people.
Sure.
There's a
And
difference
I
between
agree with
thinking
you, but
Walmart is evil
that's fine, but it's like it even comes down to a
and
difference
showing up at their headquarters.
That's fine. There's a difference between how we even quantify what we would consider harmful. Because I would say that a lot of the bad rhetoric on the left led to, Jesus, was it how many?
Led to Jesus.
I would say that bad rhetoric on the left led to over $1 to $2 billion of property damage over the BLM riots. But none of that is considered extremist violence. None of that is considered extremist rhetoric. Nobody even knows how many people died during the BLM riots, right? All of that was okay because it was for our cause.
Okay,
Yeah.
I consider rioting and burning down businesses and municipal buildings and blowing up cop cars and setting dumpsters on fire. I consider that extremist violence. Now, a lot of that is also opportunist violence. People see other people doing something and they just join in because they're angry or whatever. They want to steal TVs, whatever. There's not every single person doing that violence is an extremist themselves, right? We agree
Okay,
on
sure.
that?
That's probably true of the January 6th stuff as well, yeah.
Well, that's true of January 6th, except Nick Fuentes is not one of the people who's just joining in because he wants to see what the inside of the Capitol looks like. He's not one of the people who's just like, oh, I feel like throwing a brick through a window. So
He's
wow,
a
I feel
thought
like
leader.
fighting
He's a
cop.
thought leader, right?
He's a thought leader. He's an instigator, and he has said he is proud of that role that he played. And again, it's the fucking Capitol building, and they were going in to try to kill Mike Pence, and they're not raiding a fucking Foot Locker.
I don't know what you're trying to convince me of here. I agree. This was all horrible. I think it was uniquely one of the worst moments in American history. But the problem was, it wasn't Nicholas Fuentes and his America First people that were there. It was Nick Fuentes and a bunch of like relatively ordinary conservative people that were there, with like 5% being part of the Oath Keepers or whatever. But those were a lot of normal, fat, fucking Republican fucking dudes that were just there to raid the building and do shit.
That's true, but he is a political operator. He's not just a normal person.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, so he's not a civilian.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. He's an important political figure in
Okay.
his movement, of course, yeah.
Okay, so when I say Nick Fuentes is insane, I'm saying he's not a normal person in the sense that, oh, Trump told me to do this and it's right there, so I'll walk down and the protest is turning into a thing and now we're going to the bed. That's not the role he's playing. That's not how he thinks. So I just feel like, again, you're you're providing so much cover for him right now, saying
Stop.
I would argue him propagating up Fuentes' career just for Destiny to make content off of him is immoral. Fuentes' relevance was basically non-existent by comparison to that point in Destiny's career. He had already destroyed Fuentes multiple times in prior debates beforehand. Gonna go to work. If you're still alive after, I'll come back to chat. All right, Henry, take care. See ya. Hopefully. Oh, wait, a whole shift of work? Probably not. I probably won't be streaming that long. But I think at the time, it would have been a lot harder for me to say one way or another on that. However, like, unfortunately for Destiny's point to all this, we now can see how this panned out. And it seemed like, as you said, Fuentes was basically non-existent. And not all that long after this, Fuentes did end up pairing up with Kanye West, which was really good for Fuentes. And he ended up going with Kanye onto Alex Jones. He got a lot of publicity, and I don't know exactly how much Destiny talking to Nick Fuentes led to that, but it probably isn't zero. I mean, I have to assume it contributed. He saw some growth and then had some other things that would give him even more growth afterwards. This seems pretty common sense to me that there's a connection. Huh. That's rude. Oh, there's something wrong with it. So
I'm saying I'm providing cover. Like, I can accurately describe his views
Then
better
stop
than you
doing
can.
it.
I'm not providing cover. He's a far-right figure. I think his ideology is damaging for the United States. I think that his movement is largely composed of anti-Semitic and racist people. Like, if he had his way, he's... Yeah, well, I don't know what cover am I providing for him. Like, I can accurately describe every view he has.
All those things are also true of Steve. All those he's a Nazi. He tried to overthrow the government.
Okay.
If somebody asked me who's Nick Fuentes,
Sure.
I would say he is a Nazi who tried to overthrow the government. He owns a streaming platform. He's been banned from all these places, and he's a friend of a friend, I guess I would say. I wouldn't say those things about Steven Crowder. Everything you just said to describe Fuentes is true of Steven Crowder.
No. I don't know if Crowder's fans are as racist or anti-Semitic in the same type of way that Fuentes' fans are. It's a different flavor of it. For Steven Crowder's fans...
Yeah, Crowder's fans are not Nazis. They're just far right.
Sure, Nazi is whatever word. I don't even know what the fuck people mean.
I mean, Stephen Crowder's fans are like some of the mainstream
You don't know what
conservative.
a Nazi is? Somebody who wants to round people up into camps and kill them or get them out
That's
of the
not at all what a Nazi is. There's tons of people that have done that. Mao did that in China. People did that in Japan. We rounded people up in camps in the United States in internment camps in World War II.
this is where we start to really obfuscate what's actually trying to be said here. I feel like Mr. Girl's definition here was good enough. Good enough to not warrant like a ton of pushback. Like, yeah, I guess. Like, technically, there's a bit more that goes into being a Nazi, but I think this is a definition that can pretty broadly apply. Doesn't really need to be contested, I would say. But here we are with it being contested. Hey, let's go.
Like that's not.
I might be inclined to agree with you about Fuentes if it wasn't for AFPAC. He'd done that in 2020, 2021, and 2022. He's been politically active for a while. Seaman County, probably because of that, not at all because of Destiny. So when I say like in part, that it had helped at least in part. So sure, I know that he's been politically active, but because Destiny interacting with him, that means he's going to have more money for his organization, which means there's going to be more people that are going to be able to like interact with it. He's going to be able to get the name of it out there better. Like these sorts of things are all just like little pieces that add up to like the bigger whole, right? So like America's First is probably grew as a result of his interactions with Destiny, him getting more attention, getting more donations, things like that from their interactions. So I'm not saying that like we can draw a direct line A to B, but it probably didn't help. I don't let me put it this way. I don't want to be this wishy-washy on it. I think that it is I think that it's likely that there was I think it's pretty likely that there was some contributing factors there. Whether it strictly just be like the funding increase to America First. He had MGT and America First conference in the same year. Sure. I don't disagree. But I think that more money means more ability to do all those things. However, I could be totally wrong. It could just be a crazy coincidence, but I don't know. I don't know.
Not a Nazi. We did that to Native Americans. So no,
It lines
you're
up very well.
just by you
Nazi is.
saying that, just by you saying that, you've already proved you don't know what a Nazi is. Okay, so let's dump that term because it doesn't.
Does America's First really have that much money going into it? To where like you would think it's that small, but
That's a fascist who believes in race and ethnic
I actually
cleansing.
don't
A
know.
Nazi specifically wants to cleanse out the Jews and other people of color.
Sure.
Okay.
So Fuentes doesn't at least openly advocate for that anymore. So when you say that, you automatically lose anybody that's part of his movement. That
Yeah, I
might
guess
be
the
like
concern-
a covert thing that they're pushing for, or maybe if he had his perfect fucking world, it would, but that's not what a thing they talk about anymore.
Wait, let me explain the mechanism by which I lose somebody who's part of his movement. I guess you're arguing that his fans are not also Nazis.
I don't like to use the word Nazi because I don't know what the fuck anybody means when they say that anymore. right?
Oh, well, I just told you what I mean. He wants to cleanse the country of Jews and black people.
I don't know if he wants to cleanse the country.
He wants
of
a
Jews.
white
I think that
ethno-state.
I think that right now their ideal policy positions would be to stop the immigration of black people or brown people, to maintain the racial majority of white people, and to try to do something to
Yeah.
get Jews out of disproportionate positions of power. That'd probably be the positions they would push for now.
That's more realistic. But if Fuentes could do whatever he wanted, if he were the dictator, do you think that's what he would do? You think he would stop there?
I don't know. He's given answers before. It's hard to guess. I would imagine he'd probably be more extreme. Probably. Like, it would involve, like, mass killing. Sure.
I think... Yeah, okay. So then let's just call him a fucking Nazi, since you believe that if he came to power, he would he would commit genocide.
If you want to play that game, then you play that game. Then you do that. That's not how I communicate with people. It is a game.
It's not a game. Okay.
It's a game. It's a language game. I want to choose.
Do you stand by your statement of 10 seconds ago he would commit genocide if he came to power?
If Fuentes was in power, there's a chance. I don't know 100%. But when I'm describing... I don't know. I don't care. I'm not trying to divine what's inside of his head. I'm trying to deal with the rhetoric that he delivers to his fans and the positions that he states that I can have a tangible disagreement with, and the things that his fans say. That's what I'm interested in. That's what
when you say I'm gonna lose his audience, and you're making it sound like his audience would be like, how could Mr. Girl call him a Nazi? He's not a Nazi. He would never do anything like that. We wouldn't want something like that. That's a horrible thing to say. I don't think that's the reaction
in a way,
from
I
his
think,
average fan.
Because there are probably a chunk of them that don't think that way. There are probably a chunk of them that think, you know what? There are differences between black people, Asian people, and white people, and I do think Jews are a little fucked. I wish we could just stop all the immigration. At the very least, have white people sit at the top of the hierarchy in the United States. Like, let's maintain that racial majority. Let's keep black people, brown people from immigrating here en masse, and let's do something about the disproportionate power that Jewish people have over, like, media and Hollywood.
MTG, unfortunate initials for Elder. Yeah, I know. It's really, really funny. There was AOC tweeted about her, and a bunch of Magic people were like, hey, what the fuck? And she tweeted back out like, oh no, I meant Marjorie Taylor Greene. She goes, I love Magic the Gathering, folks. You guys are all right by me. So that was really funny that Magic got put into like political Twitter because of that. It does always like break my brain for half a second whenever I see her mentioned by her initials, because like I'm immediately gonna think Magic the Gathering, and then I'm trying to fit together the rest of the context into Magic, and I'm like, oh, it's this dumb bitch. Okay, never mind. Reset my brain.
That would probably be, and if they think that, then when you go into those communities, you want to fight that thought. You have to fight against that. But if you're going to go like, you're a Nazi, they're going to be like, oh, fuck you, I'm not a Nazi. And now you've lost it. It's gone. I felt this way before. When people called me homophobic in 2012 because I called people fags, the reason why I didn't listen to any of this is because they called me homophobic. I'm not homophobic. I know I'm not homophobic. And I instantly shut those people out. It took me like years to learn why you shouldn't use those types of insults. And it's because all the people that could have convinced me otherwise instantly wrote me up as homophobic. I'm like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm not going to listen to anything you say. Because I know I'm not homophobic.
Do you think I'm using Nazi as an insult?
Yes, you are using Nazi as an insult. You're choosing that word because it's the one that has the most moral weight and gravity that you can find. That's why you use it, because it feels good to use. It feels good to call somebody a Nazi. It's like a left version of the N-word. You're Nazi. Fucking Nazi. Like, it's exactly what
Have I ever called anybody a Nazi before that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. But when you're saying he's a Nazi and all his fans are Nazis, he's a fucking probably a race realist, Christian fucking theocratic dude, Christian monarchy, whatever, like Christian nationalist. There's a lot of words you can
kind of
call
lumping Mr. Girl in with the fucking leftoids.
I'm not trying to lump him in. I'm
That's
just
what
saying
it feels like.
I'm not trying to lump him in. Well, I'm saying that the tactic of picking the word that is like the most like.
It's not a tactic. I literally think he's a Nazi. You want me to use a fucking euphemism to not offend him?
It's not
or
a
you
euphemism.
or his
Just
fans?
hit the points accurately.
Is that am I misgendering him? Is that not his preferred pronoun? I think he's literally a Nazi.
Okay.
Didn't we have this discourse as well?
You just said you think he would commit genocide if he were a dictator against Jewish people. What other word do you want to use to describe somebody who believes that? Far right is sanitizing. This is my problem with you.
Sorry for coughing. Do you think that Max is correct here that the audience of Nick can't be reasoned out of their positions? No, I don't think that. When we're talking about audiences in general, I don't think that an audience can't be reasoned out of a position. However, I do think that the more extreme the ideology is, the less likely it is. And so when it feels this unlikely, I don't think it's like the craziest thing to say it that way, if that makes sense. So like, like it's kind of like when we're talking about politics of like this caliber, um, or political streaming of this caliber, it's kind of like thinking about the audience in terms of like watching a religious debate. Like, do I think that an atheist debating with a Muslim has like? Do I think that nobody could possibly be swayed by that conversation? No, I wouldn't say that. But would it be like totally crazy if I heard somebody be like, actually, after I saw that debate, I'm not Muslim anymore. That really convinced me. Everything clicked. And I'm a devout atheist because I saw Aaron Ra debate whoever the fuck. I just don't think that happens very often. Few people can be reasoned out of any position. The positions people hold are emotional first, logical second, if at all. Yeah, I used to not think that because I have had my mind changed like a lot. I'm pretty open-minded. I won't hold on to a position if it doesn't logically line up for me. If somebody can prove me wrong, I'm pretty good about just going like, oh shit, I was wrong. I might not get it right away, but I mean, if I get it, then I get it. I don't have this desire to like fight and hold on to an idea or a position that's not going to lead me to the truth. Like that freaks me out. The idea that someday I might fight tooth and nail for something that is ultimately incorrect would be like the intellectual death of me. So I think that I thought that that's how a lot of people were for a really long time, and I just know better now.
Not calling him a Nazi.
Also,
is that you are sanitized.
Working Bob, I've never seen you on any of my streams before, but I've seen you in a ton of my older YouTube comments. It's nice to have you on the stream. Thanks for being here.
And by making it sound like, well, some people are against abortion, and then some people are against contraception, and then some people are like think that there should be, evolution shouldn't be taught in school, and then some people want to kill all the Jews. Like it's just the next step in a natural line. Like no, it's not the same fucking thing at all.
Okay. I would rather engage with the policy positions or with the thoughts that he's stating than to label him as something and start from there.
Then you should evade you should say, I don't want to label him. You shouldn't say he's not a Nazi because he is.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, if I said that, if I said that, then I was mistaken. What I should have said was, I don't want to call him a Nazi. If you want to call him a Nazi, and I did say that, go for it. That's on you.
You call him a Nazi on Twitter. You said he's basically a Nazi like 2 hours ago.
Sure. Then maybe I do sometimes. It's back and forth. Then what is even your problem with me?
Well, then why? Okay, my goal. Okay.
Hold on. The way that I act on Twitter in terms of like calling like he's basically a Nazi, I'll say that. He's probably basically a Nazi, sure. But when I'm in their community and I'm engaging with them, my goal isn't to soy the fuck out and scream Nazi, 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 Nazi over and over again. That's not what I'm going
soy out. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is I would like, if I could control you, I would like to see you call him a Nazi, but that doesn't mean you have to soy out. You don't have to scream at him. You have to stop talking
What
to him.
advantage do I have labeling him a Nazi rather than just engaging with his actual words? What is the advantage that I gain there?
It's not about the advantage to you. It's about not giving cover to Nazism. It's about stopping or challenging this ideology and not providing loopholes where he sees a big loophole in you. He sees this big gap where you're like, I don't want to appear soy. Right? That's the worst thing. The worst thing for you.
This is the thing, the criticism, the age of the Giga Chad, yes.
Yes, the worst thing for you emotionally in your brand is for you to appear soy. And calling somebody a Nazi is too soy for you, unless you're using it to mock another leftist. He sees that as a big fucking gap that he can just fly right through. And there's no resistance from you.
The word Nazi doesn't mean anything anymore, so I can't use that in serious conversation. If we were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, maybe, but at this point, me calling him a Nazi would be like me debating a red pillar and using the term toxic masculinity, or me talking about being a feminist. Even if they might be accurate, and I'll grant you, given Nick's ideal policy positions, maybe once he won't come out, probably would be a Nazi, sure.
I've been a Spectre in some streams before, I haven't chatted much. I think it takes a hell of a lot of time. For example, I would put the the situation Hassan has right now up with his audience dropping. That's true. The Hassan's audience drop, that took a lot. That took a lot of red flags being ignored, and then like he was slowly bleeding it, but I think the Willie Mack thing really did Hassan in. Which is kind of crazy that that's all it took. Because it seems like Willie Mack just kind of like showcased things that like all of Hassan's critics have said before like 100 different times. But hey, if it's getting people to see that Hassan's just kind of been full of shit for a long time, then cool, I guess. Definitely like the most overpaid, underperforming guy in politics. Or political streaming anyways. I think. Well, maybe Mike from PA. Well, it's glad to have you as not just a Spectre anyways, Working Bob.
Or close enough to it that I feel comfortable calling him a Nazi. But that word has been so soyified, has been so drugged through the dirt, that it has lost all meaning, and it instantly signals me as being an outsider loser that has no capability of understanding what they think. So there are certain words that I don't touch anymore because people have destroyed the meaning of those words. Nazi, fascist, toxic masculinity, feminism.
Give me 1 second. I'm done with the fun. I'm gonna present it to my wife. Could use a little more M2 tape, but I used all I had. Where do you want it? It's at 61%. According to the battery itself, it's like almost twice as big as your old one. Okay. Hold on with that. I'm back.
Pro, trans, ally, whatever. I just don't touch these words anymore because they're fucked.
Okay. I think that this is a problem because SJWs have overused that word, right? And conservatives have overused the word SJW. These are all terms that we don't want to touch because they're lame and they discredit you. But
yeah.
We're in this environment of like algorithmically charged, psychologically manipulative content, this content feeding machine that does advance bad ideas over good ideas. I agree with you in an ideal, like ancient Greece, we're all sitting around a table talking about ideas, then yeah, maybe good ideas win. But that's not where we are. We know that fake news spreads faster than real news because it's more psychologically gratifying and emotionally evocative. And then the way it's delivered with the social media algorithms multiplies that by 1 billion. We have these social media companies complaining about Andrew Tate banning him when they made him.
I disagree with both of those concepts. Just so real quick, I used to believe this.
Hey guys, if you don't mind, we have a few people in here. If you could just put a thumbs up on the stream, I'd greatly appreciate it. My understanding is that YouTube is really good at bringing more people into the stream if you thumbs up the video. Maybe that's wrong, but in case it's not, it's free. So I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that good ideas can win, but I think people felt like they don't have to fight for them anymore, and they should be provided self-evidently. So when we look at things as like fake news spreading better than good news or real news or whatever, that misinformation spreads faster than information, I think the reason why
Mr. Girl fans are enjoying this win like heroin after all the wacky shit he said before. Mr. Girl fans, rise up. Good shit. That's funny.
Yeah.
is because I think the
Destiny
people that
donation,
spread
too.
misinformation do a
good.
fuck ton of work to dress it up in highly lucrative ways. They work so much on their messaging. They work so much on undermining establishment messaging. They work so hard on presenting their ideas in the best light possible. And people that are in charge of disseminating true information basically paste it out, size font 10, Times New Roman, boring as fuck, here it is, and if you don't believe it, we're going to ban you from everything, call you a Nazi.
If that if those coughs that I had muffled into my shoulder are still like way too abrasive, let me know, and I'll be more proactive to mute myself.
And tell you that you're not
It was
allowed to talk to
killing
anybody.
me.
That's what it feels like to me. So I don't feel like that the algorithms and everything else incentivize fake news or whatever. It feels that way, but it's because those people are playing on the algorithms more than people on the other side are, and I think that that needs to change.
Okay. Okay. Well, I accept your disagreement there. I still believe what I said, but I mean, even right now, your channel's going through unprecedented growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Fuentes is in all your thumbnails and recent videos. And Google is pushing that.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who, I assume most of them are getting these videos recommended to them.
Sure.
So Google says, we're going to ban this guy. His rhetoric is so harmful. But if he's on this other guy's channel, we'll blast it out to the entire fucking universe. And like, look all the money we're making. So I'm just trying to paint this kind of broader picture of the tool.
As a huge Destiny fan, I think he went about this conversation poorly. I don't think him pushing Max on the definition of Nazi and more on the side of him trying to reach his audience pushing Max on the definition of a Nazi and more on the side of trying to reach his audience and about his ideas.
Tools that we have.
It feels like throughout all of this, it's just like Destiny, more than anything, just doesn't want to lose a point. He doesn't want to come out of this looking like he ceded on anything.
To
That's what it
argue
feels like to me.
against genocide as an idea or a plan have been wasted by people like Aiko using them on me and anybody else they find remotely offensive. So now we're not allowed to use those tools of rhetoric to push back, because even the act of pushing back makes you look like a loser. And then the humor thing allows you guys to joke back and forth. Like you're on there saying he's saying you can't have kids with Melina because how are you going to know who the parent is?
Feels that way, but the bigger thing he is fighting against labels. He is doing the same thing right now against apartheid for Palestine.
Or something, and then you're like, yeah, she belongs to the street, right? And
I think, yeah. So I think that if you have a tough fight, if you're Destiny and you have a really tough fight, you're gonna go for the fight that you can win. And fighting against labels is a really easy thing to win, because arguing about labels, you get to be really ambiguous. You get to like he did with the Nazi thing. You can say things that like everybody can kind of say is like ultimately true, but it's not true in the context of the conversation. So you can kind of like move around in that space really freely, and it's super hard for anybody to like get a win over you in that, because of like the underlying truth is that like labels are flexible enough to where you can force it into meaning something that nobody will agree with. Eventually he ends up in a rabbit hole and fighting for stuff he doesn't need to fight against.
it's like he's making fun of.
But it's because the label thing is the fight that can be won because of how much freedom there is to move around.
He's making fun of your wife, and then you're making fun of your wife because
can't really get held
that's
down
what
anywhere.
we do. Like as funny progressive-ish people, we make fun of our own group, but Nick Fuentes doesn't do that. He also makes fun of your group.
Sure,
so
but it depends on the
he's
engagement.
using all these tools.
But it depends on the engagement with the humor, right? Like when I say Melina belongs to the streets, I'm not really making fun of Melina. I'm making fun of him for saying it. I'm knowingly in an open relationship. My whole community knows where I stand on that, and Melina obviously knows where I stand on that. So when I throw things like that, so I understand you can find aspects of my humor, right? When he says like, "Oh, 9/11,"
he would.
That's I know that he might not, right? But obviously the humor is complex.
Yeah. Yeah. It is complex, but conservatives don't mock themselves to mock the other side. They just mock the other side.
I don't know if that's true, but I'd have to dig through every single joke being made.
It feels true. Like when you think of Steven, of Steven Crowder's jokes, right? Steven Crowder's like never like, well, today on the right wing Nazi.
Sure, on those types of programs, but left leaning people
show.
are never going to make fun of themselves either. It's going to be all calling.
At the very least, when they do, it's so over the top. It's like not even ironic. It's parody. If people on the right do it, they'll do it in parody, not like ironic humor.
And conservatives, hillbillies, and
But
hicks
we do. Well,
Sure, you and I do.
moderate
It's rare.
lefts. Yeah, and Chud does too.
It's like Tucker Carlson will do a thing and be like, "Oh, but that's just because we hate America. We hate like he'll say things like that are just like I it's different. He said he's basically just parodying them. He's not he's not making like oh my god. He's not using
Yeah, I mean,
irony
I
in the
think
same way.
the issue here is, and this is, I think, calling back a bit to an earlier point, but Nick has clearly stated that
It's like an abrasive, sarcastic
hides
way.
his true beliefs and through irony, and that's a strategy that he's got. So even if you believe he's kind of, moved to the left, as you say, somewhat on say the Jewish question, how can you tell that? Because he still makes jokes about it, and you might think, well, he's just joking and playing on that history, but he could be genuine. Like, how would you ascertain what's true and what isn't?
For Nick's jokes,
Right, and so you're.
I don't have
He's
to
constantly
ascertain.
joking about Jews, isn't
For
he?
Nick's
All the
jokes,
time.
all of them are half true, of course. I know what his ideology is. No shit.
But
When I
you
joke
said
about
earlier he's
9/11 being right-wing violence because it's coming from Israel, he's laughing, but obviously he thinks part of that is true, of course. No shit.
So where has he moved left on the Jewish question exactly?
Yeah.
It's a whole conversation that's not even worth getting into that I don't care about. The goal isn't to change Luis Fuentes' mind, though. The goal is to get some.
But it was worth saying that he doesn't think that Nick thinks that anymore. But when he gets pinned down on it, now, of course that's true, but it's not worth talking about. Sorry for the poor message grammar, etc. I'm trying to do something at the same time, and I'm failing at messaging coherently. No, you're good. I think I understood everything you
buy
said.
into these communities so that I at least have their ear.
Okay, I agree that this is good for you and good for your content and good for your growth. Absolutely. My problem is that you are algorithmically and both algorithmically and just through your own size supercharging Nazi ideology and then admitting that you don't feel that you have the tools to challenge it without discrediting yourself and basically saying there's no way to even talk about this, how this is what's happening, without making yourself look like a soy leftist.
So I think I do have the tools to challenge it. I think I'm uniquely positioned to do that, number one. And number two, without making myself look like a soy leftist, there's just certain words that you can't use anymore. The right is just as much a victim of this as the left, in terms of like there are certain things you can say or can't say because of like how they're taken or whatever by other people. Like that's just a reality of the evolving landscape of language. Like that's not my fault. I can't do anything about that. The fact that racist or Nazi or fascist or these words have been used so much that they kind of lose all meaning, that's just, it is what it is. Like, for instance, I would argue to some extent, I think Nick has moved, whether he'd admit it or not. I think he used to be like a white supremacist, and I think now their ideas are more in line with kind of like white separatism, because it's a little bit of an easier idea to sell, that we're not better than black people, we're all just kind of different from each other, and that should be respected. Like, that's an example. Still extremist rhetoric, but it's...
This is chill time. Also, never apologize to Elder. That's what I really meant to say. I do it to everyone. Elder isn't getting any special treatment.
moderated a bit, because the other position is a little bit harder to sell.
You can apologize to me. It's just not necessary.
You think the rhetoric has changed, or you think his beliefs have changed?
But really, you
I think
probably
that when
shouldn't.
rhetoric changes, I think belief will slowly follow, invariably. You can't go mask on all the fucking time and expect your entire audience to follow you. Eventually, some of them are going to change their minds. That's what we're arguing about on the opposite end. If I make enough Nazi jokes, will my community slowly change over time? If he makes enough like cuck jokes or whatever jokes, is his community slowly going to change over time?
Nick was in his Telegram talking about how Gideon was proving his beliefs about race.
Sure,
and
racial
IQ.
IQ. That was one of the things they argued about. Yeah, sure. They're race realists. Yeah.
I don't know if that's something to sneer about.
Okay, so Nick has said that he's going to hide
I should get special treatment, but you should never apologize. I should get specially bad treatment.
Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism,
I accept
and
this.
jokes. And that you can't say his real beliefs. He can't express his Nazism freely. And you're saying that you think that because he can't express it freely, therefore he has to change his rhetoric and therefore his beliefs and the beliefs of his followers will change.
Over time, yes.
Isn't that just this? Okay. So isn't that justification for just like outlawing or banning racist rhetoric?
Then the problem is that rhetoric still exists in other places. And the problem is the goal shouldn't be to ban it. The goal should be to change it over time. That should be like the goal. Or like find a way to curb the rhetoric without getting rid of the people. That's the issue. Like if there was a way theoretically to ban all of that type of speech but keep those people around, maybe that would be different. But what's happening is everybody is segregating off into different communities now, and we've lost the ability to communicate with each other. Because it seems like there's just as many
he's explicitly saying that he is going to hide his true beliefs from people like you.
This is the strongest. Oh my god. Thank you very much, Lex Friedman. I'm doing prep for Destiny debate with Shapiro. Not sure how I ended up here, but interesting channel. Keep it up. Thank you. Doing a lot of stuff about the Destiny and Mr. Girl bridge burning. Very generous of you. Thank you very much, and nice to have you here.
And then when he stops talking about his true beliefs, you're saying like, oh, his beliefs are
how
changing.
Cool.
But he's explicitly stated, I'm going to hide my true beliefs about Jews and my true intentions.
Sure, he's 24 years old. Do you think?
Also, you probably ended up here because I know you watch Wick. And I do some stuff with Wick. I was on his panel the other day.
That if he, quote unquote, hides his true beliefs, do you think he could maintain that over half a decade? Over years and years and years, he could remain just as radical while masking his beliefs constantly on public platforms?
I have no fucking idea.
Okay, I don't.
The idea that... oh, thank you so much. Truly honored. I think that somebody like Fuentes, who is as politically minded as he is, absolutely has a public persona that doesn't get touched by his internal beliefs. So I think that when he goes on stream, like Destiny and his girl both agreed upon, that he does plan to use irony to mask his anti-Semitic beliefs and ideas. I think that it is very easy for somebody who is as politically motivated as Nick Fuentes is to play the character every single day and not have an impact on. Absolutely. He is somebody that is extremely career and political career oriented, and it is completely capable of doing this. I see no reason to think otherwise.
So if he is forced to mask his beliefs, or if he is doing that every time, it's possible, nay, even probable, that his beliefs, his true beliefs, are more radical than what he lets on, for sure.
You don't think anybody can pretend that they do not
Wick is
want
great.
to commit genocide?
He's a good guy.
Not want to commit genocide, sure.
But you just said you think he does want to commit genocide.
Sure.
You just said if he was a dictator.
What I said was that, like,
you said.
Also, does anybody know when that's going to be? Because I thought it was going to be in November, and it wasn't, and I'm pretty pumped for that myself.
If he was dictator, he'd probably commit genocide.
I said it's possible. I don't know 100%. I told you I can't divine his thoughts, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a 0% chance.
But he's not saying he would commit genocide. I just feel like you're fucking an impressive
what do I do?
gymnastics.
So I need to just scream at him every time I see him. Don't have him in real life
No,
anymore.
stop
When he comes
giving
into
me this
Discord,
fucking
scream and
stuff.
shout at him. Sorry the
Steven,
fuck out. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
It's me.
Oh.
It's me. It's me.
Okay. What?
This was always super important to me. Destiny's getting like super debatey with Mr. Girl, and at this point their relationship is really, really good. And when I first saw this, it hit me so hard. Mr. Girl's putting his hand over his heart. It's me, Destiny. It's me. I'm not. He's very strongly trying to communicate. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm not trying to do any of these things that I know all these other people that you talk to, they do this stuff. I don't do this to anybody. I'm certainly not going to do it to you. And at this point, everybody knows Mr. Girl fucking loves Destiny. He fucking loves him. And I think his feelings are really hurt right now that he thinks that that Destiny assumes he's trying to pull some kind of like tricky wool over his eyes or something. I even used this, him in Destiny in this as like a thumbnail before. This is one of the hardest things for me to see in it, in this whole discourse.
What are your
Max,
prescriptions?
come on.
Tell me your prescriptions.
Okay. Do not let him or your audience for a second forget who Nick Fuentes is. And the fact that he said explicitly, I'm going to pretend I'm more moderate than I really am, makes it so that you actually need to work harder to remind them of who he is, what he's done, and what he's said. And you're not doing that. You're doing the opposite
Okay,
of that.
how
You're,
can I do
again,
that in a
providing
way
cover.
that
You're
doesn't...
saying he's just a 24-year-old kid.
Tell me how I can do that without looking
isn't
soy as
soying out?
fuck. Yes.
Well, this is the problem that we're getting at, is that, we're
You're gonna
so
have to look a
fearful of
little
looking
soy.
soy. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to have to dip into a bit of soy sometimes. I don't know how else to suggest it. But
Okay,
like,
then that can be people like your guys' jobs. The people that are making the post on my server is like, just to remind you guys, Nick is a Nazi. Then
I don't want to be soy, though. I don't want to do it. Fuck,
I don't want to
No,
be
I
soy
don't
because
think
if I'm soy, I lose all credibility. I can't be soy. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. Is that if I come off as a soy progressive, then
that is why he is targeting you.
sure, and it's why I'm able to talk to him.
I understand that, but Nick's or a Nick clone's path to actually becoming the dictator leader of the United States.
I don't
of
think
America,
so. Like, if anything, he's the best person for me to associate. He has no YouTube. He doesn't have an official Twitter. He has...
We just saw Trump. Trump doesn't have a Twitter, or Trump's also banned from all these sites.
Trump is
and
also
he
a billionaire
may well be.
and was the president of the United States.
This is where I really diverge from you, Max,
Trump
because
tweeted-
I just
Trump
think
tweeted-
we talked about this, okay? And I feel
Oh,
like you're
Jesus
giving
fucking
no,
Christ.
no, it's not Jesus fucking Christ, right? It's like we
Yes.
and I, we spoke about this, and I'm saying to you, yeah, I don't know what the outcome is, and then you said it in a way that seemed really extreme, and then I said, oh, I don't know if it's quite that, and now you're
No, you're
and
straw
you
man.
kind of
Let
like,
me finish.
No,
Let
and
me
now you're
finish.
saying
Let me
Nick
finish. What
Fuentes
I
is going to be the
what I was
fucking
saying.
president. He's going to wipe people out. This is fucking ridiculous.
That's not what I
man.
said. Stop.
Okay, what-
That's not what I
go on.
said.
Go on.
It's hard for me not to say
I
anything
said
yet.
the path for Fuentes or a Fuentes clone to becoming an actual dictator leader of this country is through people who enable them, who do not stop them, who amplify them, and who are afraid to look soy and tell them no. That's what I said. I'm not saying that Fuentes is going to become a dictator. Don't fucking straw man me. Don't
Okay,
do
but
that.
okay,
That's
listen
not
then,
what I'm saying.
listen.
I'm saying that the last person, the person who's come the closest to becoming a dictator of this country is Trump. And he
Okay.
did it by half ironically memeing his way into the White House.
It's like that, it's the quote, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. It's basically what he's saying here.
With semi-racist,
Okay.
semi-ironic jokes, always plausible deniability, always saying, "Oh, I didn't mean, I was just joking."
Couldn't you argue that in
So
the beginning
that-
with
so-
Trump, people tried your strategy? Wasn't Trump almost universally chided, universally ignored,
I am
universally panned
not-
by media?
I didn't say you should ignore him, and I didn't say you should chide him. I said you should, if you want a fucking playbook, look at my talk with Richard Spencer. I was friendly with him.
The fake news things was an example. He agreed, but started with no, and then talked about the nuance that bridged the gap. I don't understand.
I liked him. We got along. We had a good conversation. We were cordial. We had a ton of ideas exchanged between us. But I did say every few minutes, I think your ideas are abhorrent. I just want to be clear that I'm just hearing you out here. I think you're like a white supremacist, or I think the idea of an ethno-state is terrible. I don't agree with anything you're saying, but I am interested in hearing about your ideology and what makes you tick. It's like
when you get relentlessly shut on for that content, though. People say,
Now, Chud's right. You would get relentlessly shut on for this content. I think there's a better way to say what Mr. Girl's trying to say. Like, the way that Destiny can do it is just be like, in the middle of an argument, he could just do the Destiny thing and be like, well, Nick, aren't you literally the guy that said, and then mention some of the abhorrent things that Nick Fuentes has said in the past about Jews? I mean, that's really how Destiny would do it. I don't know if it's because Mr. Girl hasn't watched streams prior to this. Mr. Girl said fake news spreads faster than the truth. Destiny said no, and then proceeded to talk about why it does spread faster. Yeah, he has been aggressively, like, not just combative, but he just doesn't want to take an L on any single point this whole conversation. So that I said that earlier too. He's just in like don't lose a single point mode right now. And as we know what follows too with the whole subreddit thing, it feels like that energy carries over after the conversation's over as well, which is really unfortunate. And I think is a big contributing factor to why I think that this is the one time I think Destiny just like outright lost the debate.
That was shit, didn't they?
Yeah, but that's fine. I don't think Steven's afraid of getting shit on. I'm saying that I don't think that I don't think
because you platformed him, they criticised you still. They still criticised you for platforming him. It still wasn't enough.
I'm not giving you a prescription for not getting criticized.
I feel like when I'm talking to Nick, I feel like I bring these things up pretty often. Maybe I'd have to go back and check, and it's not as often as I think. But I feel like I'm constantly referencing, like, oh, you are kind of a white supremacist. Or, oh, you know, you do believe some pretty weird fucking things about Jewish people. Like, I feel like I say this.
We can't measure how to ethically platform somebody based on public response. If you present those ideas, most of those people shitting on Mr. Girl probably didn't watch
Quite
it.
often.
Do you remember when Trump said Kim Jong-un was his friend?
Yes.
That was bad.
Wait, who's Trump and who's Kim Jong-un in this relation?
Most people probably watch somebody talk about it. That's just true.
Steven is Trump.
Okay.
Mr. Girl is cruel to me when I thought I always showed him kindness. I didn't understand why. I wish the best for him. I understand. I know the whole deal on that situation. The easiest way to explain it is that I think he had his feelings hurt. And I think that you were probably being honest when you said to him the reasons why. And I think it was just very hard for him to not believe that. He told a story about it. And that sucks because I would have absolutely loved to see you interview him. That would have been insane. Yeah, I'm sorry that it worked out that way. I think it would have been awesome for both of you. I think that you were probably being honest and that you were interested in doing it later and that it just wasn't the right time for you guys. By the way, though, if you do need any notes for what you're studying at Destiny on, I got the notes.
And when you become friends with
I think
somebody,
both Destiny and
sanitize
Max
them.
were heated for this whole time period.
I'm not saying you
Their
don't
feelings
bring
got
up
in the way of the
topics, but
conversations
you're
they had.
asking me my prescription.
At a certain point, this conversation shifts, and they're no longer talking to each other, but they're talking to chat. And I think that showed a rift in their relationship that hadn't been there before. Whenever you see them more and more start to talk to their chat or to the audience in general instead of each other, this is a breaking down of their relationship. You're welcome. And it's things like that I'm looking for so that I can present it when I make my video on Mr. Girl. Because I know everybody, like we all know that it fell apart because of the Destiny report and all that. That's not something that's unclear. But how did it get to that point? Where did Mr. Girl's ideas about Destiny shift to where he looked at him in a different light, which then led to him writing the Destiny report and them not being friends anymore? This is what I'm interested in rediscovering by watching these old videos.
Don't tell me that you don't see the difference between me having...
Oh, Destiny couldn't stand the division in his audience? Correct. But Destiny is somebody who always says, like, my audience pushes against me all the time. Like, I don't care about that. He's always presented himself as somebody who doesn't care about that, and it's not true. And it gets really bad when Mr. Girl starts showing that it's not true. It's a narrative that he has about himself that he ultimately can't back up. And I think that makes him upset to no end, which is why when I talked to Destiny about the whole subreddit thing, he did eventually just have to come out and say that. And I told him, well, if you would have just said that, it would have cleared all this mess up. Nobody would have had to talk about it. I wouldn't have been on the stream that you came to with me talking about it. But because you're trying to act like you had nothing to do with it, this was somebody else's call and all that, it leaves this ambiguity there, and nobody really knows why it's happening then. If Destiny had always just taken the position that I don't want people in my audience to be against me, fine. But he didn't want to do that because it goes against the narrative that he puts out about himself.
Having a very
which is fine too,
careful
but just say
interview
that.
conversation with Richard Spencer about his beliefs and contrasting them to mine, and going out for fucking chicken and waffles with him with Shaylin. You don't see I know you see the difference. So if you're asking me my prescription, that is my prescription, is that radioactive fucking shit needs to be handled with radioactive equipment. And I'm not saying that and calling him like freaking out and calling him a Nazi as the insult or berating him that's also not the way to handle it. I agree with you. I don't think leftists know how to do this either, but I think there is a way to, like, when you interview Jeffrey Dahmer, you don't go out for chicken and waffles with him afterward.
The problem is the broadcast of the dinner. That's the issue at hand, right?
I would say
don't lie to your friends about things that matter to them. Yeah, that too. Big time. I always thought the breaking point was Mr. Girl realized Destiny used him against Anna without telling him the truth. Sure, but what would allow Mr. Girl to see that? You have to understand that Mr. Girl seen Destiny through the most rose-colored glasses. Thanks, you too. Obviously, you're gonna. Like, you look at how the average Destiny fan views Destiny. Mr. Girl had that kind of, like, high on him times 100. Okay? And so, the interesting thing is that how did Mr. Girl go from seeing Destiny as somebody who not only gave him a career, but as somebody who is a friend of his that he genuinely had love for, and, like, could not see something like him using him against Anna, to being able to see that. This is the thing
even having the dinner
that I'm looking for.
broadcasting
I'm
the
looking
fact
for
of the
these
dinner.
breadcrumbs.
But I mean, yeah, it's like people are saying like, oh, like Steven can be friends with whoever he wants, but it has different meaning when you're friends with somebody. Because it's when the channel is friends with him.
I don't know. I mean, my goal, essentially, as of late, is to show that I can get along with anybody. I can talk to anybody. I think most people get along with most people, talk to most people, and that the longer I have their ear, the more I can kind of slowly, over time, like, bring them over to my ideas. That's my hope. That's my goal. Part of that might involve friendly conversations. A lot of that involves really aggressive conversations, of which I've had a ton of with Nick. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see in
You think
6
you're
months
more,
where we're at, or do I think I'm more what?
We can already see in your subreddit where we're at.
Where are we at? It's people going crazy, swinging back and forth over everything. I don't know how you can get a thumb on anything that's going on in the subreddit. I don't know what people's thoughts are.
Because both sides are completely missing what's happening to them.
Sure, but this is always a
memes
history.
Aside, has your perception of Nick changed after watching his last 2 IRL hangouts with Destiny? Top comment: I realize he's very much similar to me since I'm a Zoomer. He's super normal with insane ideas. I'd play Minecraft with the person I was talking about. Yeah, he's less intimidating now. His ideas are still dog shit. He seems like an awkward kind of dork.
This really is what sanitizing is. Like, this is... You don't have to agree with Mr. Girl about this to say that, like, this is the hypothetical fan in reality that Mr. Girl is concerned about. So it's not like it's a delusionary concern that Mr. Girl has about this.
Orders the same food as Destiny.
Isn't that arguably a good thing, rather than seeing these people as, like, greater than human, like, supernatural figures or whatever? Like, here's a theme I've gotten through some emails, is sometimes I get emails from people that email me and they're like, hey, I've got a friend / brother / father who's like a super normal dude and everything seemed fine. And then we had a conversation one day and I found out that this guy thinks that, like, the Mossad is in control of US media. What the happened? I never could have thought that my friend / brother / dad / whoever could have possibly started to believe this stuff. Because it seems like all the people that are, like people like Fuentes or whatever, these guys are people that are screaming.
I never liked Mr. Girl. He gave me internal red alerts the first time I watched him talk to people. I think that's the thing that made me like him at first. I always really like it when people I don't, not like piss people off, but I like having that feeling of uneasiness myself. So that's what made me interested. But when I listened, I just found it to be remarkably interesting. And over time, I slowly let down my guard. There's a reason why he used to say a bit in the beginning, hating me is the first step towards loving me. And I think for a lot of people who ended up being his fans, that was true. Um, shit, what was just said?
Because
here?
it seems like all the
Yeah.
people that are, like people like Fuentes or whatever, these guys are people that are screaming from their podium
Oh.
at AFPAC and they're doing that
So I actually think that Destiny's point here is saying that isn't that even better than to not make them seem like basically like they're larger than life or whatever. This is a great argument to use against Mr. Girl because it speaks to his narrative of having empathy for people that we don't agree with. I'm not sure why it didn't land very well here. If the public perception was wrong about Nick, people call Destiny a Nazi, so it makes sense he thinks this. Destiny would be correct here. Oh, if public perception was wrong. Yeah, sure. Interesting. I enjoyed his conversations when he first talked with Destiny. It seemed to have a very different mentality, logic than I did, but he had really well thought out process for his ideas. I didn't hate him. He just never passed my vibe check. Sure. Working Bob. Yeah. Like I very strongly disagree with Mr. Grill about trans issues. However, I think that he has the best process and like paths that he took to get to his wrong conclusion of anybody who I strongly disagreed with about it. The way that he got there was not through hate. There was nothing like super condemnable about the process in which he arrived to the wrong conclusion to me. Whereas some people say like it's an affront against God, like all these kinds of really terrible things that people say about it. He never said any of that. He arrived at his conclusion through being empathetic towards trans people. And I was like, well, if you're going to be wrong, that's how I want you to be wrong. I want you to be wrong with your heart in the right place at least. Haha, yeah, Mr. Girl talks a lot about how people are afraid of him. Yeah, he said he's had dates where people just like women just like left and said that he made them uncomfortable without him really doing anything. It's not even a fear.
shit, and normal
think
people
that's
don't
fair,
believe this
Elder.
stuff. Don't you
Thank
think it's
you.
good to show that, like, well, actually, if you look at Nick, he looks like a normal dork. He's a normal dude. Like, yeah, he actually is kind of a normal dude.
That's a double-edged sword. It's
Of
good
course.
if it is in the good if it's in the context of you cannot forget what he really believes or what he really wants to do. He wants to kill people.
I think that it's so weird to me because if somebody said to me, "Hey, Mr. Girl's out sick, and you have to stand in for him for this conversation," and like we know that you watch a lot of his stuff, we know that you know his stuff really well, so just go ahead and give his take on this. That what I would assume that Mr. Girl would say to this, based on everything I've ever heard him say, is that this is good because it's important for people to understand that regular people can harbor genocidal anti-Semitic views. They don't have to look like literally Hitler in order to be having these kinds of views. People should understand that the awkward dork could also be a Nazi underneath that veil of like regularness and nerdiness. This is how I would imagine Mr. Grill answering that. So his answer to this is like pretty odd to me. Because what I just said would be consistent with like everything else Mr. Grill has said about people that are seen as problematic broadly.
He wants to kill millions of people, and you can't forget that. So it's interesting to watch Jeffrey Dahmer eat a sandwich. It's interesting to watch Kim Jong-un, fix his hair or whatever. Yeah, these are interesting human moments that make us realize that anybody can be radicalized, that these are real people, but it also has the effect of sanitizing him.
I just have gut feelings on some people that I can't shake, and he gave me that feeling. I can't put my finger on it. I think most people felt that way about Mr. Girl. And maybe because of that, that's the thing that I like. When it comes to like how I judge people, I think initially how I decide if I want to indulge somebody initially or engage with somebody in the first place, I usually am fairly contrarian. And that if a bunch of people think like, oh, this person's probably bad, I'm like, I don't know about all that. I'll make my own decision here. And so I'll kind of have a guard up so that way I don't end up believing that just because that's what other people think. I think I'm pretty pretty guarded against falling into thinking things just because other people think it. So I was kind of confused about Max bringing this whole thing up. I ended up boiling down to a more principled position and a greater dislike of Nick and Nazis. I do think that I don't even think I know that there is a personal stake in this for him because Mr. Girl's Jewish. I think that part of it is that he's genuinely like freaked the fuck out about this.
And making people think, oh, he's not
I think
so
it's
bad.
really hard to think
I
otherwise.
want to
about
sanitize
that.
him as a person. I don't want to sanitize his ideology because I think people need to see him as a human. But if I'm missing the point, or if I'm fucking up and I haven't been pushing back hard enough, I mean, I don't know. I look for things like that.
You're fucking up right now.
How am I fucking up?
Because you should understand that you're doing something dangerous.
Of course it's dangerous. Everything I do.
Okay,
but
when you understand, but
Destiny was really close there, but by saying everything I do is dangerous, that's disingenuous as fuck. Him talking to Sargon of Akkad doesn't carry the same weight as him talking to Nick Fuentes, and he knows it. That was a really silly thing for him to say, I think. An effective Nazi leader isn't going to be shouting Heil Hitler because it would stop people like Destiny from uplifting them.
This is dangerous. You should understand that. And when you get pushback from the people who least want to be seen as soy leftists, me and Chud, and if we're saying like, hey, we're kind of concerned about this, you should not meet it with a fucking avalanche of defensiveness and counter arguments. Shouldn't you be saying like, well, yeah, what do you guys think I should do? I know you asked me that.
That's what I should have done. No, I've never thought about this before. Holy shit, tell me. Yeah, of course I've got an avalanche of counter arguments and shit. I should think about this fucking shit all the time. I talk about this to fucking Melina. Yeah, I think about this stuff a lot, of course. Like, I'm putting Nick in front of 14,000 viewers. Of course I'm thinking.
If this is the case, if what Destiny's saying is true here, and if what Mr. Girl's saying is true, Mr. Girl would expect Destiny to be having a bit more of a conversation than an argument with him about this. I think that's the big point. What are the other reasons do you think that he made such a big point of this agreement? Was it mostly about his justifiable fear of Nick and his movement, or was it something else? I do think that it was primarily that. Now, there's probably some things like underneath the hood that we can talk about that, like people like to say that Mr. Girl was like jealous of like the time that Nick and Destiny were spending. That might have something to do with it. That's like unaccessible to Mr. Girl. It's absolutely possible, but I do think that the primary reason for this is that Mr. Girl is Jewish, so he's going to be sensitive to this kind of thing. He knows that he has Destiny's ear to some degree, and I think that he feels compelled to take the responsibility to try to get these ideas across to Destiny because he is in a unique position to do so. He is somebody who has a legitimate reason to be worried about Nick. I don't think that like I said, if that is a thing, I think it's just something that's subliminal and it doesn't have accessibility to even noticing. But I think that it is based on Mr. Girl's character and how he behaves. It's like a call to duty, basically. He knows that other people aren't going to be in the same position as him to have and who are going to have the same set of values that he has. So he feels compelled to do what only he can do here, which is to try to convince Destiny that what he's doing is dangerous and get him to not sanitize Nick Fuentes. If he thinks, let me put it this way, if Mr. Girl's telling the truth, and I think he does, that he is concerned about Destiny sanitizing Nick Fuentes, then he would have to do this. He would have to take it seriously because he's the kind of person that must act on his moral beliefs. We've seen this. Mr. Girl has proven, you can love him or hate him, that if he truly believes something, he has to act in accordance with that belief. I think a lot of Destiny orbiters felt the same way, but we all know Mr. Girl isn't afraid to confront Destiny. Yeah, I think that a lot of other people in the space will adhere to their beliefs as long as it's good for their career. But if it's not good for their career, they're not going to go to the lengths that Mr. Girl does. And to be clear, I'm not saying that I would advise everybody to. Obviously, it didn't work out super good for Mr. Girl, but as far as his integrity goes, solid.
About like, am I doing a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What should I joke about? What should I joke about? I thought about this shit a ton, of course. You're not the first
Okay, so
person
you
to make me
put
think
Nick-
about
you-
this.
Sorry.
I'm not saying I am. I'm saying that you don't seem that open to our feedback.
I'm open.
Yes.
I'm listening.
Wait.
But everything you've told me, I've read in
Okay.
my
You're not
subreddit.
listening. You're talking.
let's-
You're arguing. You're
Oh, my
counter
bad.
arguing.
Tell me what I should do.
Okay,
please.
wait a second.
Tell
Wait.
me.
Listen,
This seems pretty hard to argue against.
But you
I
don't
think-
fucking
okay,
care.
hang
Look,
on.
look. Wait,
It's
look
not
at
that I
you
don't
rolling
care.
your
It's that
eyes
I'm
at
not
us.
hearing anything
Wait.
novel here. Like, this is stuff I've read on my subreddit. I thought about myself a million times over. Of course. Like, don't you think it's problematic that Nick might be personalized? Bro, I've heard these arguments since 2017. We first debated. Of course, I've heard this stuff and thought about it before. For you to
I
bring this
didn't
up to
say
me like
don't
it's a
But they can't accuse him of that anymore. I think that they did at a point, but yeah, I think it would be an insane claim to make about Mr. Girl at this
okay.
point.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I said it the other day before I got sick. The Destiny report was the biggest mistake you could make insofar as your career if you're Mr. Girl, but it was brave as fuck. Nobody can say you can hate him with all your heart, but you have to admit that it was brave to put it out. That's like the
I think
scary-
okay. Another thing to bear in mind.
it's not even just career scary. Like, you know, people are gonna come after you. He got doxxed and shit. Like, it's scary.
I think that if you're
fucking
being
speak. I've had enough of this shit. Okay, listen. I've been cucked a number of times. Okay, and I'm fucking sick of this shit. This was my idea in the first place. I'm getting cut left, right, and center. Listen, I'm not a fucking cuck,
talk.
all right? No, you shut up now. Okay, I've
He
had
is just
enough.
sitting there
You
watching.
make me say something anti-Semitic soon. I fucking swear
Jesus
to God.
Christ,
Okay,
nice
Listen,
jokes.
listen. I know. Listen, I'm trying to hold back from the jokes because it's supposed to be a subscription. Anyway, right. Listen. Okay. I think the issue here is this, okay? I agree with some of your concerns, as we've spoken, Mr. Go, of course, right? I think that what I'm hearing here, though, is that it seems like there is a method to the perceived madness, and Destiny does have a plan or a structure in place, right?
Mr. Girl is a martyr characterized by self-sacrifice and the willingness to endure personal loss or suffering for the benefit of others for the cause they believe in. This can include sacrificing one's career, personal well-being, or significant aspects of life. The key aspect of this archetype is the element of sacrifice for the greater good, often without regard for personal gain or recognition, at least in part. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think unfortunately that Mr. Girl acts a lot like somebody who's trying to make up for something. And I don't know if that's the case or not. But if it is the case, that makes me really sad. Because I think that he did just fine doing what he did without doing that.
And I can see that coming
I don't think
through
he
in
had
the way he's
anything to make
talking
up for
about
it.
this. But it seems like you're kind of saying that even though he's had some thought process, you just think fundamentally him going for the chicken and waffles dinner was wrong. And nothing's going to get around that, I don't think, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of points I'm making that I don't really feel like you're addressing, Stephen. I feel like I am being met with a avalanche of counter arguments and evasiveness.
Okay, if you want, you can give me 1 point, and
I
we can
agree.
go point by point if you want. I'll write it down.
Okay.
Excellent. Let's calm things down. That's what we want. Excellent.
I'm so calm.
Did you ever finish your review of the Destiny report? I don't think I ever saw the culmination of your review. I did not. I think Mr. Girl morally did the right thing. If only people in this space were rewarded for that. Might have just been a stream. He did do the right thing. It's so hard as somebody who's a huge fan of his, and I'm really sympathetic too, because I am a strict Deontologist. I also very much follow my my morality like to the T. Like the reason why I went vegan was just because one day I couldn't reason myself out of it anymore, and it was overnight. Like, who does that? I can't do something if I don't think that it's okay to do. I can't just go like, well, I guess sometimes it's just going to be a piece of shit, and that's fine. So I get it. I genuinely understand it, and I'm still upset about it. Yeah. The main reason why I didn't is that I tried to get Benny on it, and Benny wasn't available, and it was so much the first time. But if I had somebody else to read with me, I can only read out loud for so long before like my brain just starts getting jumbled, and like I'll start losing track. That's why it was really nice to have him to tag in. I would just need somebody else to read alongside me as well, just so I can have that little bit to just like sit and listen to. I just can't read for that long by myself. I'm still open for it though. If I can't get Benny, I'll try to get somebody else. It'd be cool if I could have Smeth for it. That'd be really cool. But we'll see. I didn't know that there was still a desire for it, but I'll check it out. Who else might be willing? Maybe Will. If not Smith, I'll try to get Will.
By the way, sorry, I just want to say as well, Present Sunday's like messaging me loads. I'm happy to bring him in later.
And to be clear, as far as I read on stream is as far as I read. It was we were in the. I guess no matter how far we got into that, it would have to be towards the beginning of the lab part. So we were in the lab part towards the beginning.
But I just want to have a bit more backwards
No.
and forwards.
No. I don't want him in here.
Wow.
Okay, that's fine. If you blacklist him,
Such a good
Present
call.
Sunday, fair enough. Continue.
Such a good call. Bravo,
Yeah, because he's
bravo.
just trying. It has nothing to do with what we're fucking talking about. Okay. Why is it wrong for Destiny to do a hangout stream with Fuentes? Is the post 200 upvotes? Top comment. I don't know. I can't remember what Destiny said about it, so I don't have an opinion. Okay. Your community believes that they are not brainwashable or influenceable. That's what this top comment means, right? It's a sarcastic joke saying like we
Yeah,
can
of course,
think for
yeah.
ourselves. Okay, that's not true.
Of course.
I think that's a huge problem here.
That's true
because
of every community, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's a problem. They'll joke about how like, oh, like we need Destiny's response to know what to think about things, but unironically, most of them do. Yeah, of course.
Okay. So that combined with your unwillingness to call him a Nazi.
A very daunting read. Sorry. God, the flu is it's not fun. It's very daunting read. Doing it within a group helps, like exercise. True. What I did read actually did reframe some of the things that I had seen in the past from Destiny. So I do think that there's value in reading it for sure.
Nazi?
I
What's at certain times? Reluctance to provide pushback for fear of looking soy.
we're not going to do this one at a
To
time.
somebody-
You're going to do the 52 arguments, and then we're going to get hung up on one. Is that what you want to do, or do you want to go one by one?
You just agreed with that point. I'm moving on to the
I
next.
did. I didn't agree with the first one.
Okay.
Okay. When you say unwillingness to call him a Nazi, okay, there are certain conversations. So I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about calling Trump a fascist. There are certain conversations where I'm comfortable using different words depending on what the context of the conversation is, okay?
Okay.
If I'm having a one-on-one conversation with somebody and I have a lot of intellectual trust with that person, then the language that I use is going to look a lot different than when I'm communicating to a broader audience, okay? I think it's fair to say that for all intents and purposes, Nick in his ideal world is pretty closely aligned with being a quasi-neo-Nazi. Probably pretty close, if not all the way there. He has the anti-Semitism, for sure. Probably the drive for ethnic cleansing, although he won't admit it. And some weird new Pan-American bastardized version of the Aryan race where you just have to look white enough to make it in. Not Aryan, but like close enough, right? So I can agree with that in the context of a conversation, sure. If I'm on a panel or doing something and a progressive comes in to scream at me over something like, don't you think Nick is a Nazi? I'm probably going to say no, because most of the time that word is thrown around, it's used as a moral sledgehammer. Like when somebody calls you a pedophile. They don't actually even know what a pedophile is. They're just saying it because they don't like you. They're uncomfortable with the views you've expressed on children, and they just want to swing that around. And the frustrating thing for you, I think, is that people won't engage with you about how you feel about cuties or age. They won't actually engage with any of those topics. They just use that as a sledgehammer to avoid conversation. That's my issue generally with the word Nazi, is people just use that to avoid conversation. So I am willing to call Nick a Nazi if I'm having an intelligent conversation with somebody that I feel like we're having a good conversation of ideas, one. And two, I do call him a Nazi a lot when I'm hanging out with him. You can argue that it's done in a half-joking way.
It was honestly too verbose for me, which is why I was looking. That is why I was looking forward to to your reading of it. Not gonna lie. Well, noted. I will get back to that. I'll see if maybe I can even fit it in this week. I know I have something going on Sunday with the polyamory panel, but I think in between that, not so much. So yeah, I will. I didn't know that there was a call for it, and it was a lot. But yeah, I will. If someone was proven to be a pedophile, is Destiny arguing to refrain from using that word to describe them because it's used too often? It's an excellent point. Going to eat my dinner, have a good rest stream. Take it easy, Elk. It's nice to have you here. Always. I appreciate you. Yeah, I think that Destiny would be totally comfortable using pedophile for somebody who's a pedophile, regardless of how often it's used. He might say something like, "This person's an actual fucking pedophile," which is why Mr. Girl has said, "I think Nick's an actual Nazi." I think putting "actual" in front of it pretty much clarifies. I think it cuts through the mist here of all the flagrant misuse of the word Nazi. We're saying actually, an actual is sort of taking the place of, not in the way that people like to loosey-goosey use the word Nazi. I'm saying that if we were in World War II Germany right now, this man would have enlisted, no draft required.
But I'm pretty sure I said it multiple times at dinner, multiple times or not.
Like, for instance, this is the best example I can think of. This is what I went through for the last week. I never thought it was a smart idea to tell somebody that I had the flu as to why I wasn't doing something. Say, I have the actual flu. That's what I've said every time, because whenever somebody has like a stomach bug or they get a cold or something, say, I think I have a flu, or I think I got the flu. If you have the flu, you fucking know it, and you're fucked up. You're not getting out of bed. You're wrecked. This isn't a cough. It's not you're throwing up. You are fucking miserable, and it's not crazy to go to the hospital for it. It is pure misery for 3 to 7 days. Like this instance of it, when it was at its worst, it was worse than COVID for me. So when you say actual, you're clearing away all the bullshit that language, unfortunately, has brought us to with how we use it, and you're honing in on the dictionary definition. I think Destiny was too dead set trying to convert Nick's viewers to share his private opinions with Max on stream, aka deep down, I think Destiny agrees with Max's characterization of Nick. Of course he does. He's about to lay it all out and how he does, and he already started to, but he's going to bring it back as to why he's not going to do it anyway.
9/11 argument multiple times. Yeah. Okay, go.
But it is done in a I would argue it's done in a half-joking way. Okay, so in the story, in the hypothetical you just gave us,
yes,
you're willing to say in front of thousands of people that Nick Fuentes is not a Nazi, given the right context.
Depending on the type of conversation I'm having, yeah. Or that you shouldn't call him a Nazi. Okay. Yeah. Or call his fan base Nazis.
So this is a problem for me, because you're saying that you can be socially pressured, or
you're looking forward to my review on the report. You view my viewpoint because I'm more on Max's side than other people. Sure. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think that one of the reasons why I'm getting more people showing up for this is because everybody had something to say about all of the Mr. Girl and Destiny stuff, but it's almost always all from a primarily Destiny fan side who isn't a fan of Mr. Girl's side of things. And I really like Destiny too. I'm a bigger fan of Mr. Girl than I am of Destiny. But like I would say, like when this happened, I was like pretty like I was like 55-45. I still was like a huge Destiny fan. Mr. Girl had like recently slipped into my #1 favorite streamer.
Was spited or whatever into saying Nick Fuentes is not a Nazi in front of your extremely impressionable audience who believes
big
they
fan
are
of
not
both.
impressionable, which makes them even more impressionable.
Even more so, I thought that Mr. Girl made Destiny the best Destiny's content had ever been. So it was kind of like additionally, I was grateful to Mr. Girl for making Destiny's content so good again, because it got pretty stale for a while. I still
That
watch
is
it every day.
sanitization in action.
but-
That is why Nick Fuentes has his sights set on you as the sanitizer. At first, it was Stardust.
Am I good?
That's fair.
Or are you pausing?
What?
Jacob,
No, that's it. Yeah,
most
go
of us
ahead,
are
whenever.
fans of both.
So, when you say you can be socially pressured into saying something like it's a negative, that's not a negative. That's
While they didn't agree with everything, there was a lot of conversations were rational conversations working through logical arguments. That's why I really enjoyed him. Mr. Girl brought the best out of Destiny in terms of arguments, content broadly, but like he made the conversations that they had were tough ones, and they were so much better reasoned, and well thought out, and more nuanced to them than any of the stuff that Destiny had done in a long time, because he didn't have anybody else to challenge him like Mr. Girl did for a long time. Since Vosh left, it was like a desert of like super engaging, interesting conversations from Destiny. Every once in a while somebody would pop in, but that was about it. I wish they did more trans debate stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff. I wish they would have talked about the Rectful video. God. That is the best stream that never happened between them, and it fucking sucks.
rhetoric, right? Rhetoric is where you're trying to persuade in some social thing, not in a vacuum, right? An argument might look mathematical or philosophical if I'm just writing a paper and I'm literally just like, here is the thing, right? But when we talk about like the whole part of the pathos part of the triangle is making certain types of appeals relating to the audience, or the ethos of like building your own character up, or whatever, right? So part of rhetoric is being familiar with social pressure. It's an
Please no trans stuff. I'm very burnt out on that topic, not to poop on your wishes. That's funny. I'm actually writing a Substack article about trans stuff, as it were, because Twitter has driven me insane.
it's an important part of
I just wanna
understanding
put
how
my
your message
ideas
is being
out.
received. Number one.
Okay.
So that's number one. So number two, you're saying that I'm saying it in front of an impressionable audience. That is true. My issue is that I have never, ever, ever, I don't water down Fuentes' beliefs. I just want people to
Fair.
accurately
Twitter
state
is
them so that
insanity.
they can be attacked with accuracy. Just calling somebody a Nazi and screaming they want to genocide everybody doesn't give you the ability to engage with any Groiper or with Fuentes, because if you do engage with them, they're not even going to defend, they won't even pretend to defend those positions. But if you want to engage with the more subtler arguments of race realism, or maintaining ethnic majorities, or curbing immigration in a certain way because of some downstream effects you think, these are things that I will talk about and I will attack, and I will constantly deride them for their views on that.
Well, hopefully, Jacob, you'll get you said, while I agree they cut through the bullshit and get to the core that is really talked about. Hopefully you can get that out of my Substack article about it. Twitter should only be for shit posting and sports updates. I can't take it any more seriously than that. If you haven't followed me on Substack, you can. Probably in the next 2 days, I'll have the thing I have written out about my my trans ideas on it. My Substack's free. Hopefully that cuts through the bullshit, and I just that's kind of my goal, is that I think that people on the left and right kind of have like some crazy ideas that just are fantastical. But I think I'm definitely more liberal about it. To be fair, most conversations are real bad on it, and I can see the value of a decent conversation on it to balance out all the bad conversations. That would be my goal with the Substack piece I'm writing.
It's a more precise way of talking about views. It doesn't water down what they actually believe, and it gives people a more accurate understanding of why what they're saying is bad, other than saying, trust me guys, I'm using the N-word that we all know and love. They're a Nazi. You gotta hate them. Just take my word for it because I'm bringing out that word. That's the feeling.
Okay.
And again, just real quick, I have to respond to everything you say. If you want to go point by point more granularly, that's fine. But if you're going to talk a lot, I'm going to respond a lot, okay? Because I'm writing down everything. Okay,
go
that's
ahead.
fine. When you said this is sanitization in action, again, I do want to sanitize the person to some extent. I don't want Nick to seem like a larger than life, unassailable figure that is the master of knowledge and information and rhetoric, and you can't even possibly hope to hold account to him. I want him to look like a normal, kind of nerdy, kind of dorky dude to show you that, one, his ideas can be taken apart. He's not a godlike figure. And people have seen that with the 9/11 stuff especially, that I spent 3 days digging into that and he abandons it entirely. And that, two, anybody can turn into this. It's one of the big reasons why when you talk about like Nazis, actual Nazis for Germany and shit, it's important to point out normal.
I will pin it in my Discord, sure. I'll pin my Discord or my Substack articles into Discord from now on. Then that's a good point. I usually just share them on Twitter, but I need to utilize my Discord a bit more. So
people can turn into Nazis. These weren't all subhuman evil people. These were normal dudes that got swept up in some crazy shit. Go ahead.
Okay. I agree with some of what you're saying.
Okay.
But you said that you will call him a Nazi in some circumstances and not in other circumstances. I believe that this provides cover for him because you are saying he's sort of a Nazi, he's sort of not a Nazi. It's kind of a joke that I call him a Nazi. It's kind of not a joke, but I'll also non-jokingly say he's a Nazi. And it is through this blurriness and confusion of how you... And then you're saying, I don't even know what a Nazi is, but then you're saying he is a Nazi on Twitter. You do know what a Nazi is. A Nazi is a fascistic person who wants to commit genocide against Jews and others. That's a Nazi, and you're willing to say that he is a Nazi, and then so again you have your impressionable audience who believes they're not impressionable, which makes them more impressionable, and you giving them mixed messages and confusing, blurry definitions, and that's exactly what Fuentes wants. He wants people to know he's a Nazi because he is a Nazi, but he also wants plausible deniability. He wants it to seem like a joke, but also to have the people who want it to not be a joke feel comfortable knowing that it's not really a joke. That's exactly what he wants, and you're providing him the exact political and environment and platform that he needs to spread that message to as many people as possible.
Okay, I agree with you that joking about the Nazi thing and everything provides cover for him. That is absolutely true. The problem is I'm not the one providing that cover. The left did it by destroying the word Nazi. That the destruction of these terms to accurately describe people's political ideologies has actually rendered them useless, such that when a normal American hears somebody on the left call somebody a fascist or a Nazi, that word means nothing. Just like how if you call somebody a rapist, that word means nothing. Just like
I'm gonna go for a few more minutes. I didn't realize it was 10:30. I'll probably go to 11. So about another half hour, and then I'll just pick this right back up tomorrow.
Like how if you call somebody a racist or a transphobic person, these words mean
nothing. But I'll start
nothing.
sooner and go longer
Because
tomorrow.
these words have been watered down and destroyed so much, the people that actually have these beliefs are now given perfect cover because it's impossible to use those words to describe what they are. And when you do, you're instantly cast aside as all of the other insane progressives who utter these same words. It reminds me when Abba and Gideon were on earlier talking about how like racism is really frustrating to combat now because like everybody will just call somebody racist or it doesn't mean anything, or the way people are racist is so subtle and insidious, it's hard to call it out directly. And I think part of that is because we've watered down those words so much that they no longer mean anything. Number one, so when I joke about there being like Nazi stuff, or I joke about it, that's in a way, it's sort of my way of saying like, I get it. And I understand your frustration sometimes with being labeled a Nazi. Not speaking to Nick, but maybe people underneath him. That like, yeah, I can joke about this. You're a Nazi, you're a fascist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a little bit of a joke there because the words themselves have become almost meaningless. But my goal when I have those conversations with him is to pierce the veil and not attack him for being a Nazi or not attack him for being a fascist, but attack him for having bad takes related to race realism or immigration or foreign policy. Because these are the things that I want to hit on that are actually bad. Because because rather than just calling him a word that could mean anything, because that cover is always going to be there, not because of me, but because of what's happened societally, I would rather go after the specific positions themselves and hammer on that, because on there I can stand on rock solid ground, and none of those positions have been poisoned or tainted by progressives because they're not having those conversations.
Okay. I would like to respond.
Okay, go. I'm just writing it down as you go. Just responding to what you said.
Calling
I don't really have
people
much to add to that.
Nazis who are not Nazis is Holocaust denial. But so is not calling people not.
It's pretty soy. I'll grant that. And it's weird to hear said, but it feels technically true.
Nazis who
I'll
are
give them that.
Nazis. They're both Holocaust denial. And one, we're saying everybody's Nazi, blah, blah. We're just kind of murking the waters and making it meaningless, like you've said. And the other, we're basically saying Nazism isn't real. It doesn't exist. It can't.
If you dilute the word Nazi to have no meaning, then it does it hurts the ability to talk about the Holocaust. Yeah, I would
come
say
back, or it hasn't lingered.
Especially the farther time goes on, the
And
further we get from
I'm very against both of these things. This person wants
Probably
to
not an
kill
argument
me.
I would regularly use, though.
Nick Fuentes wants to kill me and my family. He wants to kill your friends. He wants to kill my friends. He wants to kill Chud's friends. He wants to kill people. And I think we need the word Nazi, and I agree with you that the left has watered down the word and inadvertently provided cover for Nazis, for real Nazis. Absolutely. They shouldn't have done that. And I think that social media platforms are amplifying Nick Fuentes right now. YouTube is amplifying him through you. I don't think they should be doing that. I think that they shouldn't amplify Andrew Tate. Same thing. Shouldn't amplify him and then say that the solution to us algorithmically supercharging bad ideas is that we just have to then ban the person. That doesn't make any sense. They're not taking any responsibility. The left is not taking any responsibility for this. The right, conservatives, you're not going to see Steven Crowder calling out Nick Fuentes, I don't think. Maybe he has, but I don't see a broad calling out of this kind of bad behavior from conservatives or like, fucking treason, right? Nobody is taking responsibility, and I hear what you're saying. Is you're saying, well, the left did it. It's not me. I'm just like little old Steven, you know? And like, I understand that position, and if I could have an audience with the CEO of YouTube, I would be saying this shit to her instead of you. But I think, even though it's not, it shouldn't fall just to you. But I think it does.
Okay, I agree that it's nice to have words to describe what people are, but unfortunately,
I think that what Mr. Girl, everything he said there, is a bit. How would I word this? It's a bit fantastical, but ultimately honest. I think what he's saying is, like, I don't want to say like technically true. Like it's true. It's honest. Like he means it. But I think it's a very hard thing to try to express to somebody without it just coming off like, come on, man. I guess I'm gonna say it in the not nice way that just sort of pops up in my head. It just sounds like you're just like crying about it. But it is true, and if you really feel that way, like I understand trying to say that to it. He's saying it to Destiny, who's his friend. It's not like he's going to debate like some other random streamer about this. I think this explains why Mr. Girl thinks Destiny has no values. Yeah. Like if you say to your friend, like, hey, you're being real chummy with somebody who wants to kill me. If you say that, that's an honest statement, and their first reaction is to argue with you. It's like, whoa, hey. Even if you think that I'm wrong, showing me some compassion first is probably the better thing to do here.
in our
It's
wonderful
that,
post-truth
yeah.
society, all of those words have been lost. I don't think any of these words mean anything anymore.
Going on a rant about how words have lost their meaning and all that feels extremely apathetic. And when you're trying to explain that the person that you're chilling with wants you dead, apathy can be pretty hard to deal with.
To say what I said earlier, like if somebody tells me that like, oh, that guy's a rapist, it literally means nothing to me. I don't know what that means anymore. I think it
means something when you call somebody a Nazi.
It
doesn't mean shit when Aiko calls somebody a Nazi, but I think it means
but for
something
people
if
who aren't
you-
aware of me or familiar with me, they might just hear the same progressive soying. They might just get that. Because I do call, there are times, and I'll say it about Trump, there are times where I will say not Nazi, but fascist for sure. There are times where I use these words sparingly, but even when I use them, there's like such a strong association. I don't know if you saw a conversation that I had with Sneeko where he's constantly saying like, oh shit, like I think you're a secret right-leaning person. I think you're a secret right-leaning. When I used the word, I don't even think I said the word toxic masculinity. I think I said the word toxic, and his brain shut off for the rest of that conversation just because I said the T word. I said toxic, and he was done. Like, unfortunately, I agree that we need these rules. We need these words, and we need them to mean things. But unfortunately, where we are at today, they don't. So I don't have any more power when I wield those words.
Also, Destiny doesn't really believe this, because I've seen him since this say, this guy's a literal Nazi, or like, say things like this. These words that have lost all meaning, he has used them and put modifiers on them so that everybody knows what he's talking about. Words lose meaning when you use them incorrectly. They have meaning by using them correctly. Destiny refusing to give the word meaning. Yeah, and he knows how to do it, though. He knows how to use these words. He still does it. They are still part of his toolkit of words he can use to describe people. He never stopped. It's just that in this argument, I just feel like he doesn't want to cede a single point.
When you utter the word Nazi, the feeling that you convey to the audience is, I want you guys to know that this is a person that I really don't like. They're probably conservative. That's what Nazi means. I can't reclaim that word because I'm as a victim of society just as much as anyone else in it. So all I can do is try to pierce the veil and go after the particular positions and fight on those grounds. Like, I might say Nazi every now and then. I might have it in an academic conversation, but I'm not wielding that word with any sort of power or authority because the meaning of these words has been destroyed.
Okay, then I think you should never use the word. But when you use it, you tell people you would use it. And then when somebody says, is Nick Fuentes a Nazi, you would say no. So you are using the word then. You're not saying I don't use that word. I don't know. Wait, you're not saying I don't use that word. I don't associate with that word. You're saying I do use that word. It exists, but Nick Fuentes does not fit the definition. And that provides cover for him.
So it's going to depend on the context of the conversation that I have. That's all I can say. Like, if I'm talking to a guy that seems well-versed in politics and he wants to come on, then I'll probably be more willing to say, especially when it comes to like Trump and fascism, I'll probably be willing to say, yeah, obviously Trump is a fascist. I think over 50% of the Republican Party would go fascist if they had the opportunity to. But if I was in a conversation with a bunch of like normie political people or a bunch of like conservatives, everyone's like, do you think Trump is a fascist? I'm like, I don't know if he's a fascist. I mean, like, he's a hardcore populist. Like, sure, like he seems like my position there is going to be a bit different because the context of that conversation is going to be so much different that as soon as I bring out that fascist word, and people in chat, and maybe even you to some extent, are like, well, you're bending on your willingness to accurately describe people, or you're bending on your willingness to adhere to the truth by providing cover to them. But the reality is the word
for rhetorical gain.
It's the problem that you're missing is that the word Nazi and the word fascist mean different things depending on where they're used.
Right. But Mr. Girl has been pretty clear about what he means when he says it.
I know, but
the whole time
everything you say gets taken out of context anyway. So I understand we're having this conversation, but you're going to be clipped, quoted.
I don't even care about. I'm not even thinking about clips or quotes. I'm saying within the context of the conversation.
I understand, but I think consistency is important with the words you use and the way you use them, even though you're going to have some, like, every argument you're making for this is like that it hurts you personally if you do it, right? You're saying like they're going to shut me off. Sneeko shut down. Like, God forbid Sneeko's.
I feel like Destiny conceded a lot of points in this convo by actually calling Nick a Nazi, but somehow he was able to spin this into a victory. I don't think he was able to spin it into a victory. I think he was able to convince people that he did, but I saw it as a loss. Like, everything that he says, like, but the fact that he said, like 10 minutes ago in this video, so like an hour ago, basically, on the stream, he said, I do think that Nick fits the bill almost completely, if not totally, of like some kind of like quasi neo-Nazi. Just right there. So like, just like, what are you arguing about then? If you can just say like, yeah, but here's why, like, he could have just said yes and. That's what makes me think that this is just about not conceding a point, because he's basically saying that, but instead he's going, no, but, while meaning the same thing as yes and, he's saying no, but, and then running through all these other things to sort of distract from that. That's what it seems like. He just doesn't want to give up anything. Also, Chud's still in the cuck chair. like, for like, he got mad about it, and then he just shut up and sat right back down.
With certain, yes, if you're trying to reach certain people, I understand you're going to change your rhetoric to make to in a way sanitize yourself to them and their audience so that they will listen to you. I understand you're doing that with Sneeko, and in that context, I agree. The concept of toxicity or toxic masculinity are, you know, interesting concepts, and, you know, can be used by feminists or people on the left, but they're not fucking imperative to you. We don't need conservatives to understand toxic masculinity. We can basically say it's an annoying phrase that just seems anti-male. People hate it. It makes their brain shut down. Let's only use it in certain concepts. It's not like a literal actual thing the way a Nazi is.
Okay.
So I'm totally fine with you being blurry about being like, are men toxic? Can they be toxic? I'm fine with half your audience being like, well, you know, Steven said this, yeah, and then another time Steven said not, and I don't really know. I'm not fine with your audience being in a position where they're like, I don't really know if Steven thinks.
So here's the issue, okay? And I had 3 people email me stuff about Wittgenstein, so now my whole philosophy of language has changed, okay? Thanks to those emailers, so blame them, okay? When you say consistency is important, you're committing a fallacy here by assuming, and I am empathetic towards it because I understand the desire, is that you think that Nazi has a set definition. That when
I understand the context changes a I understand.
Okay, well then you understand that, and you said something incorrect anyways. Okay, because you said
they both agree context is important, and within the context of this conversation, Destiny fucking knows what Mr. Girl is saying, and he's playing all these word games instead. That's what's so frustrating for me watching this.
Earlier, consistency is important, implying that me using the word Nazi the same way in every conversation would be consistent, and me using it in different ways is inconsistent. It's not.
Consistency of your use in a vacuum.
But no word is in a vacuum.
If you took but actually, every time you talk, you are saying things in multiple different conversations.
Sure.
There's the conversation you and I are having.
Yep.
Which I think would be different if it were not in public. There's the fact that Chud is here, even though he hasn't said anything in a while. His presence is still changing the conversation and the meanings of our words. And then
I'm letting the big boys go at it, okay? I'm letting the big boys test strips out of each other.
I'm not arguing. I'm not criticizing you. And then there's the I'm just pointing out that your presence does, like, every.
Actually, quite a compliment from Chud there, really. Like, unironically.
Every individual reconfiguration of the audience. There's my audience watching. There's your audience watching. There's Chud's audience watching. Everybody's having their own different experience, different groups. If people are watching with their friends, they're having different experience. Yes, the meaning of our words is changing all the time, but you can't use this concept to provide cover for you just saying whatever you want. For you saying Nick's a Nazi, Nick's not a Nazi, and like, well, context changed the meaning of words, so I can just directly 100% 180 on anything whenever I want and say that, like, no, you can't say I contradicted myself, because anytime you say anything, you're contradicting yourself, because the meaning of words changes in the context. There's certain, so I agree with you. It's very rhetorically effective to operate that way, but my problem is that you are sacrificing certain things when you do it. So when somebody watches you say, oh, I'm not going to say toxic to Sneeko, but you called something toxic before, it makes total sense to say, like, look, Sneeko is not going to listen to that shit, okay? His audience is not going to listen to that shit. There are a lot of people watching. I want them to come over to me. I'm going to help these people. It's going to help my career. All those things. I'm willing to make the sacrifice, okay? I ditched ditched the concept of toxic. Ditching the concept of Nazi is Holocaust denial. And when you ditch it and pick it up and ditch it and pick it up based on the sensibilities or the sense of humor even of the people you're talking to, it inadvertently provides cover.
The cover is there. I can't do anything about it. I can only function in that environment. We can say you have to use a word the same way every time you use it, or else it's not consistent.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's just not how we use language. There is no word that is consistently defined through every context, through every medium. Things become redefined. People understand and misunderstand things differently all the time. That's just the reality of how things are. And if I'm trying to be persuasive in that, let me finish responding to what I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm writing your shit down. Okay. That is the reality of the world that I live in. I have to talk in front of audiences that have all of their own preconceived notions of every fucking word I'm going to use. And if I'm not aware of that, I run the risk of losing everybody instantly on everything. Now you can try to levy this charge on me that it's just hurting me personally, but I mean, like, I do politics online, so everything that benefits my politics technically benefits me personally. There's not much I can do that. But like, I committed a fatal error here when I was in New York and I made a joke about eating horse paste, and I lost the entire audience for like 40 fucking minutes just because of that one joke, because it wasn't the correct joke to make at the time, because I didn't utter it exactly correctly, even though more or less what I said was correct. But like, that's an example of like, it doesn't matter precisely the words you use, it matters like the context that it's sitting in, the way that they're being used, the type of audience that you're talking to, and how it's being perceived. So there are going to be times where somebody in a personal conversation will be like, you think when a guy's like possessive of a girl, do you think that's kind of toxic? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super fucking toxic. But if I'm on Fresh and Fit and Fresh,
he keeps making all of these like time and place examples, and yet when he's at the time and place where the context is being provided for him of what Nazi means when Mr. Girl says it, and he's not confused about it, he's still unwilling to do it. So when it allows for him to be ambiguous, he can use these examples. He can show how he can say yes in this instance, no in this instance, but he's ignoring the instance that they're actually in, why he's not giving a straight answer in it. He's not saying like, but if I'm in this sort of situation, then I can't do it, because instead I have to have a long conversation about when I do and when I don't. It's so weird.
or Fit is asking me, like, do you think that men that are possessed with women, do you think that's toxic? I'm like, no, not at all. I think
I can't be the only one that sees the irony in like that, right?
Okay to have like a normal level of kind of like healthy jealousy about a partner, because it's being that word possessive and my word toxic can both mean totally different things depending on the context. You might want to call it weaselly, but that's because you have a misunderstanding of how language is applied in day-to-day and political life. All words constantly have changing and evolving meanings depending on the context that they're used in. That's just the reality of language.
Wait, couldn't you could use this to say that nobody's ever being weaselly then?
No, because because the problem is
we're talking about a 180.
Sorry,
like,
hold on. I thought I was allowed to talk. Go ahead. If you ask me a question, I'm going to respond. But if you want to go ahead, then go ahead and I'll let you finish.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
What I'm saying sounds weaselly, but that's because you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not saying that any word can mean anything about how you want it to mean at any time. That's how you're interpreting it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that any word will mean something different in a different context, but it will have specific meanings in different contexts. When I say the word toxic in an MRA environment, that is going to have a particular meaning that I need to be aware of.
I understand that.
So it's not a Weasley thing to say, when I say toxic here, it means something different than when I say toxic here, unless I were to defend that word in a wholly ungenuine way. For instance,
what about if you say Nazi in this situation here?
You say like, well, when you called that guy this thing here, like, what did you mean by that? I go, well, in my native culture, that word, no, that's bullshit. That is being Weasley. Just because I'm aware that different words are taken differently in different contexts doesn't mean I'm being Weasley. Go ahead.
I get the fucking concept. I'm not saying that you're being Weasley. I'm saying I understand and I agree with you. There are words I use in certain contexts in certain ways that I use in different. I think this is a great concept for understanding language, and I completely agree with you. that the meaning of words do not exist in a vacuum. But I think that there are certain words, or there's a sacrifice when you do that. When you ditch a concept that you like based on the audience. So there's times on my channel where I'll say I'm a feminist, given who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about. And then there's other times where I say I don't like the word feminism, I don't like the idea, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely. But...
Sure.
Would you call yourself a feminist?
See, feminist has multiple definitions, right? So if you're talking to conservative, feminist means I
Stupid
hate
bitch.
men. I'm a stupid bitch, right? So no. But if I'm talking to people who I trust, who are like, feminism is when you believe that women and men should be equal. Yeah, definitely. I'm a feminist. Very important to me. Okay.
It feels like this is a similar point to what Destiny's making, no?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm saying I agree with this part of what he's saying.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
But the problem is that there is not... feminists don't want to commit genocide, by and large. There is not a Holocaust that is constantly being denied or argued about or debated about. And it doesn't have that much bearing on the future or safety of people or our country when I label somebody who tried to break into the Capitol building to kill the vice president as a feminist or not a feminist. Like, the stakes are just not as high. So I am willing to allow a faction like feminists or an ideology to their I'm willing to give on the definition. I don't think the word feminist is not a good word for what feminism is. It's not the label is not like self-explanatory. I just don't think it's that like coherent as an idea or a label. Nazi is a perfectly good label for Nazis, and I agree that the word's been misused and co-opted, and as I've said, I think that it's tantamount to Holocaust denial.
Can I do two quick questions and then you can finish? Just two quick questions?
Yeah.
So number one, you said there's a huge sacrifice when you ditch a concept based on the audience. I never want to ditch the concept. That's why I'm ditching the word. Is because
when you ditch a word, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll ditch the word, but not the concept.
Yes.
But I think adhering to the word...
There's a sacrifice when you ditch the word.
Yeah, but I think adhering to the word is what makes me sacrifice the concept. Because if I call somebody a fascist, now I can't talk about fascism. If I call somebody a Nazi, I can't talk about Nazism. Number one, and you can respond to that. Number two, you said feminism isn't a good label, but Nazi is a perfectly good label for Nazis. I feel like feminist doesn't work anymore for exactly the same reason why Nazi doesn't work. Feminist is a really good label. It's a fairly descriptive thing about broad views of society, but when people hear it, their brains shut off because they already have an association with it. And I feel like Nazi is the same way. Go ahead.
I don't agree. I think that the feminist goal is for everybody to be a feminist. And that doesn't make any sense. The word feminist sounds like you in particular are a big fan of women or whatever. If it were like equalist or humanist or something that everybody would be proud to have on their bumper sticker on their car, but everybody being a feminist doesn't make any sense. So it's almost like the movement wants the opposition of the movement to like stay there so they can stay in opposition to it. It's like rebel. It's like the rebels in Star Wars, even in episode 7, 8, and 9, are still the rebels. But
isn't it kind of ironic though that like
resistance?
I don't know if you have this feeling, but when I hear somebody, maybe I'm self-reporting. When I hear somebody say, "I'm not a feminist, I'm an egalitarian," I automatically assume they hate women. Do you have that same feeling?
It depends on the again. It's a
sure, but I'm saying,
I mean, yeah,
that's I get that feeling. But like, look at that. Now we've ditched feminist because that's a bad word. We've picked egalitarian and everything. And as soon as I hear that, I can already predict like 85% of your views on women just by you saying something like that. But that's like a better word. But I think that's another example of like how much these words get changed so much over time.
Yes, I agree. So I'm fine with feminism being blurry. I'm fine with egalitarianism being blurry. I'm fine with toxic masculinity being blurry. I understand wanting to dip in and out of these frames. The problem is Nick Fuentes.
Although let's be real, people say egalitarian because they're trying to dodge saying feminism because they don't want to elevate women to a status of equality. Like saying I'm an egalitarian instead of saying I'm a feminist is like it's like literally like all lives matter response to it, right?
Specifically
like women's rights matter, like all people's rights matter. That's basically what being an
Explicitly
egalitarian.
wants to dip
saying I'm
in
an
and out of
egalitarian
the
says.
frame of Nazi so that he can get his ideas out there, but claim deniability. And in you dipping in and out of the frame of Nazi with him, you are providing him cover for doing that. You're helping him. And that is part of why he's so attracted to you and your platform, is because you do not want to be seen.
So I guess to clarify, like, I think Mr. Girl wanted Destiny to say that he's a Nazi up until the point to where he's like, oh, we're not operating with the same understanding of what that word means then. Okay, then, sure. Then I want you to pick whether he is or isn't. Yeah.
Stopping somebody for being
Because
a Nazi, calling somebody a Nazi,
Destiny's like,
calling it
"That
what
word
it is,
doesn't mean anything
and
to
being
me. I
really
can't say it."
consistent, like a brick wall. I'll talk to you, I'll interview you, I'll discuss shit with you, but the Nazi shit is not going to fly. The way the Nazi shit flies is through ambiguity and humor, and you are providing the exact ingredients that he needs.
So what I said earlier
Have you been called a
pertains to
Nazi
that
before?
when they
yeah.
Have you been called a Nazi, Chud?
after Mr. Crow realized
Yeah,
that
of
they're
course.
not on the
So
same page.
I
Of
agree
course.
with you that he's able to take cover from the Nazi shit, but that's because too many people have used the word. If I say to him, if I say to him over and over again, I'm going to call you a Nazi, which I think I even do. That's not getting me anywhere. I have to challenge him on his prescriptions. That's the only way that I can pierce the veil.
Now Destiny's reframing it as though the value would be in calling Nick Fuentes a Nazi to Nick Fuentes, which isn't the point at all.
Just saying you're a Nazi or having August label him Nazi with an arrow.
You're a Nazi isn't it. He wants the messaging to the audience to be clear, not his messaging to Nick to be clear.
I gain nothing from that. I don't get anything from that.
I'm not talking about piercing the veil. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about you using the term jokingly, seriously, and then also saying he's not a Nazi, providing clips or quotes for anybody to say anything they want about him. Then even your own, now you're providing the same cover for yourself now. Half of your fan base thinks that you think Nick is a Nazi. The other half thinks that you don't think he's a Nazi. Nobody knows what you really think. Maybe this is like the most explicit or like serious conversation where you've laid out what you think. I think the most telling quote from you is that you think he would commit genocide if he were the dictator.
There's a chance,
but
but I don't think anybody's ever thought, like, I've more or less, when we're speaking
Okay,
about
but now you're going to say, who knows? Anybody would commit genocide if they were a dictator,
Not
right?
any.
And
I
then-
think
but
Nick
in the
probably
same-
has
in
a
the same conversation, you're saying,
I think Nick has a substantially higher chance of wanting to commit genocide than most people on the right.
Okay. We're at the 2-hour mark here. I got like 4 minutes left before I said I'm gonna wrap, so I'm gonna just start saying the stuff that I say at the end. The reason why I gotta end now is I have some other stuff to do, and I'm definitely not up to full strength from the flu. I get tired pretty easily still. So at the 2-hour mark, YouTube's gonna be super cool and save this for me where I'm at. I think the rest of the week will mostly be this. I might try to slip in a kick in Twitch stream that's not on YouTube of finishing the Ren video I was doing. I still have the list that I had made up from it saved, and I'm gonna try to get either Smeth or Will to read the rest of the report with me. I know Will's probably, I didn't mean to do that, gonna be a harder sell because I know he's super busy all the time. And if neither of them are available, I'll see what I can find. And unfortunately, none of those can be done on Twitch because, none of the Mr. Girl Destiny stuff can be done on Twitch, so it's been pretty much YouTube. Thanks for keeping me company, Jacob. Maybe if Benny's available again. Yeah, I would prefer Benny. I would prefer to have that continuation with Benny, for sure. If I don't know how many people caught the AI warfare panel. Tuna absolutely lost his mind the other night against Samantha Savage. I never met a Samantha Savage before, my first time, and I really fucking don't like Samantha Savage. I put up a short of me making a joke at their expense. It takes a lot for me to be like mean to somebody, but consistently calling one of my friends a retard while they're trying to speak and interrupting them, so that you can say something isn't a response to them at all, I guess does it. Um, so if I don't have to interact with Samantha Savage again, it'll be too soon, but I won't shy away from it. Polyamory panel on Sunday. I don't even know when that is. It's from Food Shops. When the hell is that supposed to be? 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Jesus, it's a late one. So I'll probably stream before that and then just go into that on Sunday. But it should be good. Alex from Playing with Fire is going to be on there, and if he's anti-polyamory, I foresee me getting really heated with him because I think he's probably the most reasonable like hookup artist guy, and I think he could go either way on it. I think it'd be most entertaining if he's anti-polyamory, but like I don't want him to be because I'm super pro polyamory. But that should be really fun. There's like Smeth, Alex from Playing with Fire, and then the other people I don't really know. There's Leaf and Food Shops is hosting it. But I'm pretty excited for that one. That should be pretty good. Otherwise, it's gonna be like this like every day this week. I've been trying to stream more, and then I got sick, so I just expect me to keep on going with this until this part's done, and I might throw some other stuff in between just to keep it a little bit fresh. But I appreciate you guys showing up for this. It's nice to see that there's some desire for a different perspective than like the constant like DGG cycle of people that covered this stuff when it happened. I feel like there's enough time away from it now to where people aren't so heated, and maybe they can take another look at it. And it works out because I need to watch this over again for my Mr. Grill video anyway. Yeah, that's it for now. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully starting a lot sooner. And hopefully I'll be feeling even better tomorrow. I've been getting better and better the last couple days, so I'm hoping to have a bit more energy then. And hopefully my voice is a bit more up to normal as well. But that's it for tonight. Oh yeah, that was. I just want to comment on it. It's super cool that Lex Friedman stopped by. I was trying really hard not to be like what and just like freak out. Like $50 dono is enough to get me to freak out. But somebody as cool as him stopping by was like really fucked me up for a minute there. So but yeah, I'll be back tomorrow night. You have a good night, guys. Thanks for being here.